Okay, and we're ready to go now.
Thank you, and welcome everyone to tonight's council meeting of North Dumfries Township. On August 10th, the teleconference video conferencing meeting. Due to COVID-19 and recommendations by Waterloo Regional Public Health to exercise social distancing and public gathering thresholds, Township Council meetings are currently being held electronically. Members of the public may watch and or participate in this open meeting electronically using any of the following methods. Watch the live stream by accessing the meeting at calendar.northdumfries.ca/council. Under the video column, click on the link for the meeting date that you wish to watch. You do not need a YouTube account to watch the live stream. You cannot directly participate in the meeting via the live stream, as this is for viewing only. Members of the public interested in attending as an observer or wish to speak to any items listed under item 4, public meeting, item 5, committee of adjustment, 8.1, committee of the whole reports, or items 10, items for discussion, must submit the request in writing to the clerk's division at clerk@northdumfries.ca before 6 p.m. on Sunday, August 9th. A link and or telephone number will be provided to those who register before the registration deadline. If you like to comment on a particular item, but are not available to attend the meeting virtually, members of the public are invited to submit written comments at clerk@northdumfries.ca, which will be provided to the mayor and council prior to the meetings. I'd now like to open this meeting, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please, clerk.
Certainly. So Mayor Foxton?
Present.
Councillor Rolman?
Present.
Councillor Osner?
Present.
Councillor McCreary? Sorry, Councillor McCreary?
Present.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Present.
Okay, thank you.
Could I have approval of the agenda, please?
Certainly. So it's moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rolman that Council adopt the August 10th, 2020 Council agenda as presented with the following addendums. 1, add item 8.1.2A, report number PD-16-2020, release of the holding zone, Gore subdivision. 2, add item 8.1.3A, report number CAO-22-2020, arena ice needs analysis. And 3, add item 15.4, bylaw number 3179-20, being a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw number 2996-18, being an amendment to the bylaw to number 689-83 zoning bylaw for the Township of North Dumfries, and that all correspondence circulated to council in advance of the meeting and made available publicly on the Township website will form part of the public record for this meeting of council, and that council rearranged the agenda to move item 6.1, presentation from Steve Langos, Monteith Brown Planning Consultants, to item 8.1.38 as to accommodate a registered speaker for this agenda item. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, public meeting will be scheduled for 7 o'clock. For now, we will continue with the council meeting. So 4.1, report proposed zoning bylaw amendment for 2384 Dundas Street South, file number ZC02/20. Is anybody doing anything on this report?
Oh, so Mayor Foxton, so we're going to be dealing with that at 7 p.m. It's part of the Committee of Adjustment and Public Meeting. So if you'd like to proceed with Committee of the Whole.
Committee of the whole, okay.
And I can read that motion for us to convene into Committee of the Whole.
Please.
Okay, so that's moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Osner that Council adjourn to sit as Committee of the Whole. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
I'm just trying to find the agenda for Committee of the Whole.
Yep, Yep, so on page 2 of the agenda, item 8.1.
Okay, so committee of the whole reports.
Yeah.
There's none for finance, developmental services. Anybody like to speak on any of the items under this? Seeing none, can I have the resolution, please?
Certainly. So it's moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Osner that the committee of the whole recommend the following item be approved as presented as outlined in the staff report listed in the development services function area. 8.1.1A, report number PD-16-2020, release the holding zone for the Gore subdivision. That PD and that's PD report be received, and that bylaw number 3179-20 being a bylaw to release the holding symbol on the Z-4 residential exception 20.1.326 zone to facilitate the implementation of the 15 lot subdivision be enacted. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion's carried.
Thank you. Next, we will have community services function area. And any members wish to pull any of those items, understanding that 8.1.3A, presentation from Steve Langwis from Monteith Brown Planning Consultants, will be a verbal report. So we already have that as a separate item. So
Yes, so staff can share. Steve does have a presentation.
So are we ready for the presentation now, or do we want to do the sports camps? Is everyone okay with the sports camp? Can we pass that resolution?
I have a question about the sports camp.
Okay, and do we want to have the presentation first or the sports camp?
Yes, let's proceed with the presentation first, and we also have one registered speaker as well for this item.
Yes. Okay,
So
so
we'll start.
Steve,
Yep. So staff can move Steve forward to a panelist.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I could just, one question of clarification. The presentation I have is probably about 10 minutes. Would you like me to shorten it till, do you want the short version, the 5-minute version, or are we okay at 10?
we can do the 5-minute version,
Okay,
and people will have
Sure.
asked questions accordingly.
absolutely. Okay, I'm just going to try to share my screen here, and I'm going to run through this, but I can absolutely come back to any slides if at council's discretion. So thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm here tonight to discuss with Monteith Brown and our team the phase 1 of the arena strategy. So this is a 2-phase process, but it is being undertaken to inform capital investment and long-term arena provision strategy. Right now, you have 2 projects that are floated in your long-term capital forecast. You're likely to only go forward with one of them. So this particular strategy is aimed at informing that. And a reminder that funding for the strategy was provided through the provincial modernization program. So just again, a reminder that we're talking about phase 1 today. Phase 1 is about usage and needs. Phase 2, which we will launch following your receipt and recommendation to proceed, will examine provision options and costs. So all of the dollars and the evaluation of impact will come at the next phase. But the information that's in front of you today in the approximately 40 page report looks at your local demographics, growth, regional arena supplies, usage trends, and public and stakeholder input. So I'll quickly review some of that information. You have certainly, I think most folks are familiar with the 2 rinks that you do have, so I won't spend much time on this, but the ACC, as we refer to it in this report, is your original ice arena. It was built in '77, although core elements of the facility, especially the slab and the lines underneath, predate that build date. And then the NDCC, which was built in 2011 as part of the broader complex, offers 1 ice pad, was designed to be twin. So there's that, I think it's fair to say, expectation in the community that usage would eventually shift over to a twin pad facility. At least that's what we were hearing through a lot of our conversations. The provision options, and again, this particular slide will be dealt with more at phase 2. But what we needed to do through this element of work was to determine if one ice pad is needed moving forward or 2 ice pads. And that would really dictate the type of options that would be considered for the business case. In terms of our online consultation, it was largely online. There was a virtual open house. We received over 60 submissions now to that. It has since closed as of today. We also requested information and spoke to several of your primary stakeholders. So about 19 different groups or somewhere in that order participated. These are the ones that use the bulk of your ice time at those 2 facilities. And we'll also be looking to host some form of public consultation event on phase 2 as that rolls forward in the next month or 2. Some of our key findings for this report: population growth, the projections for the community, and we also looked more specifically at the area closer to air because that's more likely the catchment area for the arena. 62% growth by 2031 is currently being projected. If we look at that from an age perspective, the primary groups that use particularly prime time, ages 5 to 19, they're forecasted to grow by 57%. We know from what groups are telling us and from our experience across the sector, prime time is at a premium, and prime time is going to be particularly your weekday evenings and portions, if not all, of the weekends. Participation-wise, since the initial feasibility study was done in 2008, local ice sport participation has largely increased in line with population growth. We expect that moving forward as well. We did look at regional arenas and plans for regional arenas, and while there are some redevelopment projects being contemplated in Cambridge, there's no new additions to the regional ice supply anticipated in the near term. Kitchener might be looking at something, but they've delayed that decision for some time at this moment. So if you're looking to go out and purchase time, that would be a challenge, and it would be one that the primetime ice simply is not there for your residents. We also recognize that we're doing this planning during the global pandemic. It will require monitoring of growth forecasts for the different ice sports. Actually, what we're hearing right now is it's probably going to result in demand for more ice time because of the cleaning procedures, the lower capacities. That's a short-term, fingers crossed, a short-term inconvenience. In terms of our public inputs, users supported a strategy that provides modern arena conveniences at a single location. They frequently came back to the limitations and shortcomings of the ACC, particularly the undersized ice pad, and it is substantially undersized to really any arena that's been built probably since the 80s, and that does have a significant impact on programming. The Township has worked very well with users to try to shift as much usage over to the NDCC as possible. In terms of arena design, it has changed significantly. The NDCC is a good example of that, how it provides your walking track, your warm viewing, regulation size ice pads, ample and large change rooms, and so on. And that really does drive a lot of utilization as being in a facility of that design and nature. Recently, usage has changed. It has declined slightly over the past 3 years. That's really been a result of shifting of ice times and trying to make a more efficient use of time that's been available, particularly at the NDCC, which is used to capacity during prime time. And the ACC, where your capacity is really ACC, particularly on weekends. And that's when a lot of teams are out doing tournaments or the sports that could potentially use the smaller size ice pad are really out playing and or practicing elsewhere. So it is a challenge. The availability there is equivalent to about 40% of an ice pad. No one anywhere really fills, no municipalities really fill non-prime time ice, so that's daytime ice. That's always a challenge, and we'll look at some ideas though in phase 2. So I'm just going to skip forward to can certainly come back to this methodology wise, but I don't want to bury the lead, which is really what the analysis through our model shows, is that there's currently a surplus of about half an ice pad. Now, as we know, you can't really build half ice pads. You can't supply them in fractions, unfortunately. But looking forward, with growth that's anticipated in the community, we expect that will be rectified to full use of prime time ice in or around 2027, using a straight line projection to 2031, and then getting to a point of 2031 where there's some form of deficit. And deficit can mean a lot of things. It'll mean groups will have to work harder to make efficient use of the ice that time that they do have. They'll have to use ice at shoulder times that they're not traditionally used to doing. But what that tells us is it really gives us confidence moving forward that there's some sort of arena investment program that preserves long-term access to 2 municipal rinks, designed and maintained to community needs, is what's required in North Dumfries. So just the last bit I'll say is, with this being an interim update of phase 1, we're seeking your direction to move forward with phase 2. Phase 2 would look at an implementation analysis, capital and operating assessments around the 2 specific options, one being a complete renovation of the ACC, the other one being a twinning of the NDCC and decommissioning of ACC as an ice venue. There would be a public consultation during that phase, and we'd be coming back to council for additional discussion at that time. So that's my presentation. I will stop share, but I can certainly come back to that if there's any specific questions relevant to the slide deck.
Thank you. We'll first go to our Rob Deutschman, who wishes to speak on the issue. Rob?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Rob. Go ahead.
Okay, great, thank you. Madam Mayor, councillors, staff, and the viewing public, I'll just be reading some notes here. My name is Rob Deutschman, and I'm pleased to be before council to speak on a topic that is near and dear to my heart. First, I want to commend council and staff for their hard work in dealing with this pandemic and working within the new normal. Hi, there I am. The community is very appreciative of your work. I've had a chance to review the phase 1 draft. It is generally in line with the prior report that was completed back in, I think, around 2007 by Monteith Brown. Good to have them back again, Steve. That report talked about the growth in the community and the eventual need for a second pad. So this report supports that. As a member of the community, I support the findings of the phase 1 report and strongly encourage council to adopt the staff recommendation and take the next steps to initiate the phase 2 assessment. Our community is growing at a significant pace. It's interesting to note that our population age is declining, as noted in the report, and it's consistent with a recent study I saw in the US that found that millennials and the Gen Xers, or whichever gen it is, are a larger cohort than the baby boomers. We're an affluent community. We have a strong sports orientation. There's a proliferation of many other sports for children, but ice hockey remains a strong component of winter activity for young people and growing for adults. This provides our community to build in that area for young and old, and to develop both sports and non-sports community activities. Now, I'm not here to speak on behalf of the Center for the Community Group regarding the findings of the report or the recommendation, as we've not discussed it, but I can confirm and affirm that the CCG is prepared to participate in an active fundraising role if called upon for the second rink at the NDCC. Our position has always been that our community is better served with 2 rinks at 1 facility. And I just want to talk about just briefly our experience with girls hockey as we were growing that sport for the young ladies in our community. We started out in Plattsville, and that really stunted our growth in those initial years. And as soon as we were able to actively participate in ice within the community, then the numbers grew and have grown significantly over time. The NDCC, or the CCG, has a sizable fund that is currently managed through the Community Foundation of Cambridge and North Dumfries. And we make donations to groups in the community, generally with an NDCC connection. And we will come to council in the future to provide a full update on the fund and our activities. The CCG has provided financial assistance to the skateboard park, and we've recently pledged financial support for outdoor volleyball courts through I believe it's the Scorpion Volleyball Group in our community. There will continue to be strong interest in our community as a place to live. COVID has highlighted the ability to work from home, and this is driving a current boom in families moving to the suburbs and smaller communities away from the downtown cores and metro areas. We will be a desirable destination for families. An expansion in community amenities, providing opportunities for a wide variety of sport and non-sport programming, will continue to attract people to our community and will be well used. On the sports side, we've seen growth area in women's hockey and our young ladies. As I mentioned, the men's hockey league has shown growth. Our minor hockey system is growing. Our figure skating club has had a lot of success. And one area I just wanted to point out was with our boys hockey is that we were fortunate to be a silver stick tournament sponsor and a regular sponsor. And it's a prestigious event and a real bonus for our community. And it's because we have 2 pads available. I note the report talks about repurposing opportunities for the ACC. This would be an excellent opportunity to develop alternative uses for the community. The community center serves an important role for the Air Paris band. The arena floor provides for a variety of opportunities, including sports like indoor soccer, as at the Syllaps in Paris, indoor volleyball, floor hockey, and both facilities continue to provide opportunities for non-sport programming for all ages. It would be our hope that any repurposing of the ACC would be as a result of a second ice pad being built at the NDCC. So I just want to conclude by saying that I strongly urge council to accept staff's recommendation and move forward with the phase 2 assessment. The information in this report shows that the community is strongly in favor of moving forward with phase 2 and specifically with a second rink at the NDCC. We're a growing, prosperous community. We are a supportive community with a strong volunteer base. Based on my experience, I know we're capable of supporting the development of a second arena at the NDCC and still provide for expanded amenity opportunities with a repurposed ACC. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and thank you to council and staff for your hard work on behalf of the community.
Thank you, Rob. Councilors, any questions on regard or comments on the report? Seeing none, Councilor Rollerman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Steve, I'm just curious, in the report you talk about how hockey and ice sports are declining across the rest of Canada, but for some reason you don't think that's the case in North Dumfries. How did you reach that conclusion, and why do you think that North Dumfries will continue to have a growth in the demand for ice?
Thank you, Councillor. Good question. So the report, I believe, indicates that ice sport registration is steady to declining based on jurisdiction. Really across the province, it's relatively plateaued. In large part, that's because of aging demographics. It's because of new immigrants that don't come from ice sport countries and having some difficulty maybe latching on to the sport. So in large urban communities, we are seeing it sort of move backwards. And that's in terms of registration. But one trend that is really across all sectors and all municipalities, I should say, is that an increased demand for ice time amongst those registrants. So increased practice time, increased skill development. So what that means is kids are getting on the ice a little bit more. The variety in sport also continues to extend. Girls hockey continues to increase and really has helped to prop up sport participation for a number of years. So while in certain cases the registration has plateaued, demand for ice time does continue to rise as the sport programs themselves continue to build on the success that they've had.
Councilor Rollerman.
So to follow up then, so if the registration has plateaued, then I'm not sure how we make the leap to having to have 2 ice surfaces. I mean, how can we not just go with 1 ice surface and use some of that additional surplus ice that you identified in places like Plattsville or St. George? Wouldn't that be a more prudent way to go? Because in the report, you talk about demographics. It looks like the population is actually going to have a large number of seniors and a lot of people in the age range of 20 to 49, growing by 2,400 in that category and 2,200 in seniors. And a lot of those people indicated that they wanted a pool. And I'm just curious, I saw in the results of the survey, a lot of people talking about a pool, but I didn't see any mention of that in your report.
So a couple of things there, if I could, Councillor. Your community is still growing. So when we say that registration is plateaued, that's as a percentage of the population. The projections from the region suggest that the number of children and youth are going to increase by 57% in our catchment area over the next 11 years. So what we anticipate is that growth, as has been the case since 2008 when we last looked at these numbers, is that demand for ice will continue to grow at a rate with population growth, particularly the growth of children and youth. So we do anticipate nearly 60% more demand for ice time over the next, by 2031. So that would more than sufficiently fill the 2 full ice pads. In terms of other recreational needs in the community, that is out of scope of the work that we're doing. We're focused on the arena needs of this. We understand you may be doing a leisure services master plan later on in the year. That would be the appropriate study venue for looking at the broader needs of the community, as well as any potential repurposing of the ACC.
Hey, Margaret, you were next.
Yes, thank you. I have a question that's sort of in line with something that Councillor Roman brought up. Steve, you're feeling that if, as our population increases, that our registration is going to, for hockey, will just increase along with our population, and that the decline in ice hockey registration that's been seen elsewhere is not going to be seen here. And I take it from the report, and I know we're trying to sort of projecting the future here, and no one knows really what's going to happen, but it appears that the idea is that this is a wealthy community and it will stay a wealthy community, so that the we're not going to see any change in our demographics and any change in the demand for hockey. And I'm wondering about how strongly you feel about that as far as your predictions go, because when you look at the housing that's now going to be available in our community over the next few years, yes, we do have some very wealthy people, and we do have some uber wealthy people that have probably driven that average income up. But we're now going to have a mix of affordability in the housing that's going to be offered. We're going to have a lot of options for people. We're going to have apartments and townhouses and semi-detached homes. So there's going to be a lot more, a different variety of people are going to be coming here because there's going to be a lot more options for them. And I know we can't predict this, but I'm just saying that as council, I think we're going to have to watch that total registration number very carefully, because it may not go up with increase in population, because our demographics may actually start to change, as they have in some communities that are very close to us, such as Paris and Brant County. So it's a comment, observation. I just think that our demographics may not stay exactly the same.
Any other questions? Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Steve. Go ahead.
No problem. If I could, Councillor, it is a good observation, certainly around monitoring demand, because it is hard to predict the future. We don't know even what the impact of COVID might be. If you have a child that doesn't register this year, will they continue to stay with the sport and build in those programs? It's hard to know. We do look very closely at age demographics, though, and I think you're the only community I've seen that has really gotten younger between the 2011 and 16 age census periods. And when we did planning, just to use another example of how we are very conservative and cautious, I think, in how we approach this. We just finished the City of Toronto Recreation Facilities Plan about 2 years ago, and this is a city of 3 million people. We did not recommend one new arena, one additional arena. We recommended replacements, but their population and age and participation profiles is much different from yours. And you're certainly right to hone in on the fact that the folks that you do have there and the success of your local programs do drive demand. What that means moving forward, we'll let you monitor, but you do have a lot of those attributes for future success in place.
Thank you. And if I can just comment, councillors, we have always had a declining senior population. In the 20 years I've been on council, we've tried very adamantly to be able to create an atmosphere to allow our seniors to stay here. But because of the lack of certain amenities for an aging population, they go within the inner city. And at the same time, if you look at all our expansions, seems to be youth and young families that want to come out here. The NDC has been a positive for a lot of families navigating towards us. And the other thing about the report, sometimes even if the numbers don't go up exponentially, the facility is being used differently. So they're not just doing an hour of practice a week, but it's an hour of practice and dry practice and everything else. So we're getting more use possibly out of the same people that are using it. So I do tend to agree that we are going to see an increase in young population. We've gone from 1 public school to 3 within North Dumfries. We probably, realistically down the road, we're going to have to face a high school here. And I don't think that's too far off. And I think we have to start planning for that now. Because I think most of Southwood is populated by Ayr and North Dumfries residents. So I think we're going to be looking at that as well. A second ice pad, possibly. Let's see what the report says. Using the old ACC for different types of options. Let's put that on the table. Our job at this point is not to negate, but to provide us with the best information we can so we make good decisions. And that good decisions may be, okay, so maybe hockey is flat. Again, plateaued. In some areas it is diminishing, but in others, I don't know what that is. In ours, it's increased, especially in women's hockey, girls hockey and women's hockey. So let's keep our eyes open. Let's watch it and let's see what the next phase of the report brings. Any other comments? Councillor Osner.
Thank you, Mayor Buxton. I think that, well, I know that I support moving forward with this plan to try and figure out what we're going to do. When you look back pre-NDCC, I remember the development up at Robert Simone Way and stuff, and Tice River was trying to sell building lots and they couldn't sell building lots. And I heard many stories of people coming from the city drawing a circle around, they wanted to raise their children out in the country. Well, when you come into Ayr at that time, we didn't have an awful lot of things for the kids. We had the ACC. So it just seems coincidental that when the NDCC was launched and the Langs facility was going to be there and the outdoor splash pad and the outdoor soccer field, the amenities started to be built in this town, and then development took off. So coincidence, maybe. I think it's because people who are looking to move into this town are not looking to drive a half an hour to bring their kids to play hockey or practice in hockey. I've been down that road. And I know other people on council have probably been down that road as well. So whether that means, I mean, the twin pad makes the most sense. However, I'm hoping the next phase, the phase 2 of this report, we take a good look, a long, hard look at it, whether we still maintain with the ACC or whether we need to move forward with a twin pad. I just seem to think once the facilities are there, I believe they'll be used. It's investing in your community, but we have to do it very, we have to be very diligent about how we do it and make smart decisions. And I think the report is one step towards that.
Thank you, Councillor Osner. And again, councillors, if you get a chance to read the comments that people wrote in, there's some really good information here or questions that I may ask staff to answer later on. But there's some interesting points in those as well. So have a quick look at those if you can. Are there any other questions or comments? So if you would like to call the resolution, please, clerk.
So moved by Councillor Rowland and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that CAO report number 22-2020 be received, and that the Township of North Dumfries Arena Strategy Phase 1, as prepared by Monteith Brown as the lead consultant, dated August 6, 2020, be received for the purposes of information, and that staff and the consultant team be directed to continue forward with the second phase of the work program associated with the completion of the study, and that the consultant team and staff continue with the development of the phase 2 business case assessment for submission and presentation to council in September, October 2020. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion's carried.
Thank you. Next we had, and Councillor Austin, I believe you had your hand up for the sports camp.
Yeah, yes, I did. I just had a quick question for CEO McNeely.
Go ahead.
So my question is, the report refers to the dry pad at the ACC exclusively. When you say the dry pad, what area are we talking about?
So Councillor Osner, what we're looking at is basically a continuation of the existing program that's been offered through the July-August time period. The sports camp is looking at using the actual pad where the ice would normally be installed, as well as those locker rooms and washrooms that flank the ice pad. And there would be times through the day when they'd also be using the community hall.
So then, so we're not putting ice in the ACC at all?
So the way it's been structured right now is based on the COVID-19 restrictions as it relates to traditional ice usage. We likely through the first part of the fall season do not have enough business activity to warrant putting ice into 2 arenas. So the discussions with the sports camp have been at such time as when the municipality indicates that there's a need to put ice in at the ACC, they would actually vacate the building.
And it's not going to interfere with if any other events start happening up in the hall?
So what has been communicated to the sports camp, similar to what's been in place this summer, is they are to be out of that space between 5 and 5:30, and we would then be able to entertain evening program in the community hall. That's what's been in place through the summer, if it was to be required by the municipality, and that same protocol would apply to the fall season.
So then the 7 p.m. window, is that just for the reception area for pickups or?
So at present, they have an early morning drop off at 7 a.m. And so there are counselors that would meet those early campers, and they have their own protocols in terms of day-to-day screening, separation from the parents, and the intake of the campers, consistent with COVID-19 standards as set out by the province and the local medical officer of health. Those protocols have been in place through the summertime period and would extend into the fall season.
If I can, Councillor Osno, you're saying that 7 p.m. It says here that, so its camp is from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then it has a window up to 7.
Can I resend my question again? So it says in the report that they want a window of 7 p.m. if late pickups of campers is required. Is that for the reception area of the arena or for the dry pad?
They would migrate to the dry pad itself. That's why on the top of page 3, it says activities post 5 p.m. if required would be restricted to the dry pad at the ACC exclusively.
Okay. Okay, that's all.
Any other questions? Seeing none, clerk, can you read the motion, please?
Moved by Councillor Rollman, seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that CAO report number 23-2020 be received, and that the North Dumfries Sports Camp, in support and delivery of their possible extension to their 2020 summer camp program, be levied a weekly fee of $500 plus HST for each week, or $100 plus HST per day, as the case may be, of the program for the space utilized in the Air Community Center. And that the term of the extension to the lease at the Air Community Center, Dry Pad Community Hall, be for the time period of September to December of 2020 for the Monday to Friday day time period. And that bylaw number 3178-20, being a bylaw to amend the Township's fees and charges bylaw to implement this action item, be enacted. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolman,
Yes.
Councillor Oster,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. And now we'll move into governance and protective services. And out of the 3 items there, the record retention, procedural bylaw to allow electronic meetings, and consideration to rescind emergency declaration. Well, C will definitely probably be pulled. But of the other 2, councillors, do you want to pull any of those? Councillor Rolman?
I like to look at B and C.
Okay. Is that it? Okay, so we can move ahead with A. So clerk, please.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Ossner, seconded by Councillor McCreary, that the Committee of the Whole recommend the following item be approved as presented as outlined in the staff report listed in the Governance and Protective Services function area. 8.1.4A, report number clerk-12-2020, amendment to the records retention bylaw. Recommendation being that the report be received and that bylaw number 3176-20 being a bylaw to amend the records retention bylaw number 2910-17. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Okay, Councillor Rowland, would you like to start the discussion on the amendment by the procedural bylaw to allow for electronic meetings outside of a declared emergency?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. My question there is that, so in the past, we've had problems with councilors not being able to attend meetings, and then we've had to go through an entire process of counting how many meetings they're attending and whatnot. Is this intended to solve that problem? Does this allow members of council in the future, if I don't feel like coming to the township office for a meeting in the future, I can just stay at home and attend electronically? What is the motivation here behind this?
I'm not sure what the motivation is. I'm sure CEO McNeely will defer, but the regional council now approaches us at the regional councilors and asks which one want to attend physically and which ones do not. I will not be attending tomorrow's physically. I will be doing it online because right after it ends at 4 o'clock. It starts at 9, and then our meeting starts at 4 o'clock. So I would not make the drive back. But the next regional council meeting, I will be going to participate physically. They can only take half of us, so only half can attend due to the measures for COVID-19 that are still in place, regardless. Even though they dropped the state of emergency under the province, they just changed it and reworded it so that the province doesn't have to reissue rules every 14 days because the policy wasn't allowed to run beyond that. Now they have a 31-day window instead. So that's what they've done, is they've taken that away. CAO McNeely.
So Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Rolman, this new piece of legislation was introduced by the provincial government to add more flexibility to how and when council meetings are held. Before this July 2020 amendment to the Municipal Act, council could only meet in person to establish a quorum, and or if there was a declared provincial or local emergency, council, if they amended their procedural bylaw, could hold virtual meetings and that could count toward quorum. The July 2020 piece of legislation has nothing to do with the COVID-19 emergency or any future emergency declarations. So yes, in part to your question, if let's say a member of council had suffered perhaps a leg injury and wasn't able to drive to work, they would have the ability to participate remotely and form part of quorum and be eligible to vote in a virtual meeting. So all members of council may be present, but that one member may be virtual. So it just provides an element of flexibility The 3-month window that you spoke of previously as it related to absences of members of council, that provision still applies in the Municipal Act. So that would be if a member of council, either in person or virtually, did not participate for an extended period of time.
Go ahead, Councilor Roman.
So then to follow up from that then, so is there expectation that a member of council would have to appear in person at some point in time? Or could I presumably for the next remaining 2 years of this term, never attend a meeting ever again in person, and that would be considered fine with the Municipal Act, and there's no expectation from the rest of council that I would have to appear in person?
So Madam Mayor, through to Councilor Rowland, either through council's code of conduct, which could be amended, and or further provisions being enshrined into the procedural bylaw, council could put some form of checks and balance in there. And that would also obviously be unique to North Dumfries Council. The legislation just permits the ability for council to introduce virtual remote meetings outside of an emergency declaration if the local council wishes to pursue that course. How council frames it or when it's triggered, council can, as I said, either through the procedural bylaw or the code of conduct, put some context in place if council believe that that instrument or mechanisms were warranted.
Go ahead, Councilor Roman.
So just to follow up then, so do we have a technology in place to handle these hybrid meetings where some people are in person and some people are virtual?
So if we had a member working remote at present and the majority of council was present in the meeting, we would actually have to communicate like we are today, and our council meeting would be live streamed out into the world through our YouTube channel. Council would need to actually place in the Dumfries room or wherever we're holding in-person council meetings, actually a camera system or cameras plural, to provide a live feed outside of our Zoom platform.
Councilor Roman, if I may, you bring up some really good points. And CEO McNeely, if we pass this tonight, can we still amend it under our procedural bylaw if we want councillors with outside of an emergency, outside of COVID, if we want councillors to physically attend unless they have a valid reason not to attend?
So Madam Mayor, as a follow-up to your question, yes, council at any point in time can amend your procedural bylaw. So if council was so inclined, you could introduce the permissions that have been introduced through the July 2020 legislation of the province of Ontario. And next month, next year, whatever, council could provide further context as to when those circumstances could be, or the frequency could be, as it related to an individual member of council and their attendance remotely.
Okay, so we've got two issues here. One is, and we're going to get it probably later tonight, is the public demanding public meetings, physical public meetings. And the other is dealing with how to properly deal with electronic meetings and individuals being present at council. It's two separate things that I think we have to deal. Passing this tonight, we can still amend it later in a short time, right?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay, see, Councillor McCreary.
I think that I'm in favor of passing this tonight, and then we can just see how things play out. And if we find that it is being abused in some manner, then we'll know how we should frame some procedures around it, procedural bylaw around it. But why don't we just wait and see if it's abused? Because I think that having that flexibility is really good.
I think we've seen it abused before. So we do need to put parameters around it. I really think we do, but that'll be a discussion at council at a further point. Any other comments? Seeing none, then do you want to read the motion, please, Clerk?
So moved by Councillor Ossner, seconded by Councillor McCreary, that report clerk -13-2020 be received. And that bylaw number 3177-20 being a bylaw to amend procedural bylaw number 3130-20 to permit electronic meeting participation aligned with the applicable provisions of Bill 197 as proclaimed be enacted. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
No.
Councillor Ossner?
No.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Sorry, what was that?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. The next one, before we get into this too heavy, just wanted to let you know, as you know, I sit on the pandemic COVID-19 committee with the region and the other mayors. I have asked them to stop all meetings because we've plateaued and until 3 to 4 weeks, and we can reevaluate before the school year starts, just the week before, and then reevaluate at the end of September. We believe that we're going to stay at a plateau until about the 3rd to 4th week in September. And then if things change, we will have to meet and make different implications. And if they don't, then we will cancel the declaration. So that's at the pandemic committee, but this council has not. Who's got the noise in the background? Thank you. So Councillor Rolleman, you wanted to talk, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I understand the region's point for having this emergency declaration. I understand the province's, continued need for it. The township doesn't deliver any sort of health services. The criteria list in the CEO's report for ending the Emergency Act looks to me like we've met all those criteria for ending it. You just yourself just said we're not having any more meetings. So why don't we just end the emergency declaration now? And then if it reoccurs in September, we can declare a new state of emergency. And that would probably have more effect. People would probably be more aware of it, as opposed to now we're kind of just, oh, well, whatever, it's state of emergency, whatever, emergency declaration, same old business as usual. If we end it now and then things get worse and we redeclare it, then I think that has more impact than just letting this thing drag on until September, October. We're better off to end it now. And then in September, if it flares back up with the second wave, then we redeclare.
Any other comments? Councillor Ossner.
Is it possible to change any one of those aspects, or do you have to completely end the emergency declaration? Like, for example, can we not take one of the bullet points, such as having council meetings in person? Can we just take that one aspect versus, having to end the emergency? So I've no problem waiting till September. It's just we're getting in some, which will be happening shortly. We're getting into some pretty heavy duty things, and it's difficult to do this over Zoom. And the public perception is that we're rushing things through on these meetings and we're not really thinking it through. Not the case, but that's the perception.
Okay, thank you. And Margaret, you're next, and then Andrew.
I'd just like to know if any other municipalities in the Waterloo region are considering rescinding their state of emergencies.
They have all asked me to strongly ask you guys not to rescind it. They like that we're a consolidated front, and they have asked me to portray that to you in their hopes that we will remain consolidating with them. CEO McNeely. Oh, go ahead, Margaret, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'd just like to comment that that's a very good point, and I think that there's no reason for us to break away from what the other municipalities are doing at this time and just carry on as we are.
Thank you, CEO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Ossner, as it relates to holding in-person council meetings, whether we have an emergency declaration or not is not the issue that relates back to the convening of the open in-person council sessions. It falls under the provincial orders. We're subject to, as all municipalities within the stage 3 area, we're subject to the public gathering threshold of 50 persons, as well as the 2-meter physical spatial separation. Combined with that, and specific to Waterloo Region, because it's a session where the public is accessible in an indoor setting, we would also have to wear our face masks to be in compliance with the regional bylaw. So as we discussed in July, council at any point in time can have those in-person council meetings, but we would still be subject to those provisions as they relate to the public gathering threshold, physical distancing, and then the regional bylaw as it relates to wearing the face coverings.
Any other comments? Councillor Roman.
Then perhaps, Madam Mayor, just for clarification, the CEO can tell me, the only reason that we're staying in this declared state of emergency is because the other regional municipalities want us to. It's not because we actually have the need ourselves to have a declaration. It's just that the other area CAOs would prefer it if we were all in lockstep. Is that correct?
So certainly, as Madam Mayor, if I may, through to Councillor Rollman, certainly, yes, the other municipalities have expressed a desire for consistency of messaging across the 7 area municipalities and the region. But it was the recommendation coming from the Emergency Operations Center that we are in a holding or monitoring period, and that with the next milestone, which we believe will occur after the Labor Day weekend, so 4 weeks from now, with the change in schooling and the potential implication of community spread through the school environment, and or the broadening of indoor recreation and leisure type pursuits may result in increased community spread of the COVID-19 virus. And we would be able to quickly then respond to what those circumstances may present. And if that emergency declaration was still valid and the Emergency Operations Center was continuing to operate, we could tailor whatever those situations are locally and respond accordingly. So it was more than just being in lockstep with the adjacent Waterloo municipalities. It was also recognizing that we have another milestone, an important one coming up right after the Labor Day weekend.
Any other comments? Would you like to read the resolution, please, clerk?
So moved by, actually there isn't. So forgot to assign a mover and seconder. So moved by Councillor Rollman and seconded by Councillor Osner. That CAO report number 21-2020 be received, and that no action be undertaken at this time with respect to rescinding of the Township's emergency declaration associated with the COVID-19 pandemic, and that the Emergency Operations Center, EOC, continue to monitor and assess the local and regional factors and conditions associated with the pandemic through to October 2020, with a further assessment to be undertaken at that time with respect to the consideration to rescind the emergency declaration, and that staff return to the September 14th, 2020 meeting of Council Committee of the Whole with an update for the purposes of information. So Mayor Fox,
Question, just a minute. Question, CEO McNeely. We really want to go till October 1st. What is the next meeting after the 14th?
Would be the October meeting right after the Thanksgiving weekend. So we would just be bringing to council and the public at the September 14th meeting an update as to the landscape, but it would be the October report that would speak to whether or not there's merits in the continuation of the emergency declaration.
See, because I don't think we'll have the numbers by the 14th. If the school starts and then the exposure starts and they've got the 14 days, we won't see till probably the third, 7 days later or so.
That's correct. And that's why the report speaks to the October being the next time when we would consider a rescinding the declaration. The September meeting is just to provide council with an update as to the local landscape.
Okay, because I myself, if things stay the way they are at regional council on September 30th or around there, we'll be asking the bylaw for masks be taken away if things have leveled off. And I'll also be asking for the end of the pandemic COVID-19 committee. But that's a wait and see. I need to know what it's like near the end of September. I agree with this. I will move to pass it. Oh, Councilor Bowman.
I just wanted to ask one last thing. If we're talking about October, what are the financial implications of this? How much extra money are we spending on firefighter wages to attend these EOCMT meetings? I mean, these people are presumably being paid to go to these meetings. So if we're going to drag this on for October, and then we'll probably have Thanksgiving to think about, and then probably Christmas. So probably February, or no, Valentine's Day, maybe March or April next year.
Councilor Bowman, I meant in October. If things have leveled off, there will be no more meetings. We're not meeting. We're not meeting
I want to
until
know
there's
what
a
this is costing the township. I haven't seen any numbers on what this is costing. Part of the IMS training is that you're supposed to have costing, and I haven't seen any costing come to township.
Ms. Stero.
Yes, through your worship, Councilor Groleman, there have been no costs incurred so far at this point in time for any wages for anybody that has been attending the EOC. The only cost that we've incurred so far really for the pandemic, I mean, there's the report that I brought a couple of times showing that we've lost revenues, but we've also offset it with some expenditures. We've lost revenues with regards to interest because of the rate change, which isn't really related to the pandemic. But we have incurred costs mostly for PP&E and also for information technology that we've had to improve in order for people to be able to work remotely. But other than that, there has been no employee costs.
So the meetings cost us nothing to attend, but there won't be any meetings. If there's no increase in cases, we're done. That's the whole point of this. Right now, we're at a holding pattern. And if it stays in this holding pattern, then I think you will see by October, that first weekend we have in October, or that first meeting in October, I will say we shut down if it's still level. But that's where I'm at. So if you, I agree with the motion, but.
Okay. Councilor Rollman?
I'm opposed.
Councilor Ossner?
I vote for.
I'm sorry?
I vote for it.
For it, okay. Councilor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councilor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion's carried.
Okay, so we're going to pause here now because we're going to go to our public meeting.
Mayor Foxton, if you'd like, we can do the motion to adjourn the committee of the whole and then move to call the planning meeting to order.
Okay, we can do that then. Go
All right
ahead.
with you?
Yep.
Okay, moved by Councilor McCreary, seconded by Councilor Ossner, that committee of the whole is hereby adjourned and the council meeting be called back to order. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilor Rollman?
Yes.
Councilor Ossner?
Yes.
Councilor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councilor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, the motion's carried.
Now you need time to set up for the public meeting, members?
It's going to be about a minute just to pull everybody in. That's going to be a panelist or.
I can't hear you, Ms. Stedall.
Sorry, it's just going to, will just be about a minute.
Yes, thank you.
I'd like to ask in the attendee list who 739555 is.
Ashley, do you have Bill Hall?
Yes, he's attended.
Oh, okay, so I didn't know if that was him. Okay.
There is a person in the attendee room, 739555. Can you please identify yourself?
Hi, this is Jenna Tebow and Ryan Gooder from Western Consulting.
Okay, we are ready.
Thank you. And good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Township of North Dumfries Public Planning Meeting. We have 2 public meeting applications for this evening, as well as 1 committee of adjustment application. Members of the public who have registered before the registration deadline have been provided with a link to join the virtual meeting this evening and have indicated to staff which application they would like to participate in. Staff will move these individuals who have registered into the meeting to speak in the order of the application being heard. It is due to COVID-19 and recommendations by the Waterloo Regional Public Health Unit to exercise social distancing and public gathering thresholds. Township public meetings are currently being held by teleconference. Members of the public have been provided with the following methods to watch and/or participate in this open meeting electronically. Watch the live stream by accessing the meeting at calendar.northdumfries.ca/council. Under the video column, click on the link for the meeting date that you wish to watch. You do not need a YouTube account to watch the live stream. You cannot directly participate in the meeting via the live stream, as this is for viewing only. Number 2, members of the public interested in attending as an observer or wish to speak to an item must submit the request in writing to the clerk's division at clerk@northdumfries.ca before 6 p.m. on Sunday, August 9th. A link and/or telephone number has been provided to those who register before the registration deadline. Number 3, if you would like to comment on a particular item, but were not available to attend the meeting virtually, members of the public were invited to submit written comments at clerk@northdumfries.ca, which have been provided to the mayor and council prior to the meeting. I'd now like to call the meeting to order.
So certainly, so that motion is moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rowland, that council call the public planning meeting to order at 7:10 p.m. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Oster?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, motion's carried.
Thank you. We got all the individuals moved in and we're good? Okay. I'd like to state that in accordance with the Planning Act, notice was given. The Secretary Treasurer will record everyone who has commented on this application, attended and/or have registered with the Clerk's Division to attend the meeting this evening. Those individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of future meetings. I'd like to now introduce Erica Koak, Planner, GIS Technician, who will be presenting this application. Erica?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to share my screen now and begin the presentation for the first application.
Excuse me.
Okay, so this first application is for 2384 Dundas Street South, the current location of the Ontario Christian Gleaners. This is the statutory public meeting for file number ZC-0120. So the purpose of this meeting is to provide an overview of the proposal. Staff are recommending no decision on the merits of this application at this time. The purpose of this meeting is on information sharing and to introduce the proposal to the public. We'll also be identifying preliminary issues or matters that are being assessed by staff. And we're also soliciting comments from interested members of the public and other stakeholders. So some background on the property location. The property is located at 2384 Dundas Street South. It is located at the intersection of Dundas Street South, also known as Highway 8, and Morrison Road. The lot area in total is 37.78 hectares, has a lot frontage of 564.2 meters along Dundas Street South, and a depth of 802 meters. The property currently contains 3 buildings. There is 1 residential building and 1 storage building with access from Dundas Street South. There is also a food drying and processing facility, which is the existing Ontario Christian Gleaners facility that has access from Morrison Road. The application was filed for the township for a zoning amendment, which is the subject of this presentation. A concurrent application was also submitted for a consent. The zoning amendment is to facilitate the severance and allow the existing food processing use located on the lands to continue. So the key highlights of the proposal. So the portion of the land subject to the application are zoned Z1 agriculture and have site-specific exemption 20.1.246. The property has other zones, including 12A, environmental protection, and 12C, open space, and has site-specific exemption 20.1.256. These do not affect the subject application. The applicant is proposing no change or development to the existing uses or operation on the proposed retained lands. Modification of the exemption will recognize the deficient lot area and lot frontage for a property zoned as Z1 and include the definition of agricultural related use to be permitted on the lands to be severed. So just a brief overview of the environmental features. There's a tributary of Fairchild Creek that traverses the subject property. The lands contain portions of the provincially significant Rockton wetland complex. No development or site alteration are proposed at this time to either the retained or severed lands. And the lands subject to the application, which are the severed lands, the Gleaners facility, are located outside of the GRCA regulated area. So just to go over the development proposed or the proposal itself, the total property has a lot frontage of 564.2 meters. The retained lot will have that same frontage. The severed lot will have a lot frontage of 73.785 meters. And the lot areas, the total property now is 37.78 hectares. The retained lot will have an area of 36.77 hectares, and the severed lot will have a land or lot area of 1.01 hectares. Under the official plan, the subject lands have the following designations: agricultural, special policy area 2.6.13.2. It is also located within the Greenlands network as core environmental features. It is also within the environmental constraint area, and is also designated as rural areas and protected countryside. So the public correspondence received at this time was one letter received from Penny Warner. Her concerns expressed to staff were the future use after a severance and threat to agricultural lands, concerns with traffic, road infrastructure, and the Highway 8/Morrison Road intersection. Her comments in full were attached to the report if you wish to review them. The agency correspondence received has expressed no concerns to date, but we will go through them now as well. So we've received comments from the Region of Waterloo Planning Department. They are currently satisfied with the zoning amendment as proposed, and they offer no objection to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment at this time. The GRCA provided comments and noted that the severed parcel is not located within the GRCA's regulated areas, and there's no proposed development on the retained parcel. And as such, the GRCA has no concerns with the intent of the zoning bylaw amendment or the consent application, which we will discuss later. Any new development or site alteration within the GRCA's regulated areas will require prior permission from the GRCA, and the GRCA would not object to approval of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and the consent application. Energy Plus expressed no concerns, and if relocation or upgrade is required, it will be at the cost of the applicant. All ESA and Energy Plus approved clearances to existing proposed hydro plant must be met. If the easement is required as a result of this proposal, the applicant will be responsible for all costs. Hydro One also submitted comments and said they have no objection in principle to the proposed severance, provided that their easement rights are protected and maintained. And any future development or redevelopment of the property that establishes the placement of permanent structures, facilities, or landscaping within the transmission corridor is prohibited without prior written approval from Hydro One. So to go through the brief analysis, planning matters that are being assessed by staff include, but are not limited to, all the comments received through the consultation process, including the written correspondence and any deputations tonight, and the effect of the proposed development on matters of provincial interest, which include efficient development and land use patterns, protecting the diversity and connectivity of natural features and areas, protecting prime agricultural land for long-term agricultural use, support rural development that is compatible with the existing rural landscape, promoting a diversified rural economy by protecting agricultural uses, and agricultural related uses shall be compatible and shall not hinder surrounding agricultural operations. We also will look at whether the development conforms to the official plan, if the subject proposal, in the opinion of staff, is desirable for the property, compatible with adjacent land uses and properties, and maintains the character of the area, and if the proposed amendment to the site-specific exemption is suitable for the lands and the use of the site-specific exemption to address the current and future intended use of the subject lands. So staff are currently recommending to council that all comments and correspondence received through this public meeting process be returned to staff for a future report on the disposition of this matter. We're not recommending any decision at this time, and we'll come to a later meeting with a recommendation report. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to now ask the applicant or agent if they'd like to make any statement.
Yes, Madam Mayor, we've prepared a presentation which we'd like to give at this time.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So I'm just going to pull up my presentation to screen share with everyone. Just give me one moment. So I think now everyone can see this presentation.
Yes.
Okay, well, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. My name is Jenna Tebow, and I am also here with Ryan Guder, who's in the same room as me right now, just social distance from me. And we are planners with Weston Consulting, and we are the applicant for these applications. So as indicated by Erica in her presentation, there are two concurrent applications which have been submitted for this proposal, a zoning bylaw amendment application, which is the subject of this current meeting, and a consent application. Given that these applications are related, I will be speaking a bit to both applications throughout this presentation. And a couple of key points I just want to point out before beginning my presentation is that this proposal has to do with a legally existing use, and that there are no physical changes being proposed to this structure and no changes being proposed to the use. So this slide here shows the plan of severance which we prepared and submitted with our consent application. And we are showing it here to provide some context for the location of the subject property at 2384 Dundas Street South. A severance is being proposed for a portion of the lands which is currently leased by the Ontario Christian Gleaners. This is the portion of the property which is labeled as severed on this plan of severance. I want to point out that there are no changes being made to the use of the severed or the retained lands, and there are no changes being proposed to any of the structures on the severed or retained lands. I note that there are some environmental features on the retained lands, and I want to emphasize the fact that there is no disturbance being proposed to these environmental features. This slide here shows the property which is to be severed, which contains the legally existing Ontario Christian Gleaners food processing and drying facility. This facility is operational since 2008 and has been coexisting with the surrounding area. The intention of these applications is to create a legal lot and to allow for the continuation of this existing facility. This facility is an agriculture-related use, which benefits from its close proximity to the surrounding farming community. There are a couple of key points about the zoning bylaw amendment application, which I would like to emphasize. The first is that the zoning bylaw amendment application only applies to the severed lot. The zoning that is currently existing for the remainder of the retained lands is not being proposed to change. Secondly, the existing facility is to be maintained in its current state. No adjustments are being proposed to this facility. This means that there's no changes being contemplated for the driveway access to the site, as well as no changes being contemplated with respect to how the site is currently being serviced. The severed lot will retain its Zone 1 agricultural zoning with site-specific exemptions being proposed. In addition, through the zoning bylaw amendment application, we have established a precise definition to properly characterize the use of the facility as an agriculture-related use. This definition recognizes the use's conformity with the modern policy regime. Another thing I would like to emphasize is that through the planning process, we spent time with staff to discuss the importance of establishing a definition to recognize the function of the use as an agriculture-related use. So as Erica mentioned in her presentation, there is an exemption which applies to the portion of the subject lands where the facility is currently located, which allows for the functioning of this facility. Our zoning bylaw amendment application is proposing to modify this existing exemption that applies to the severed lands in order to recognize the reduced lot area lot frontage and the addition of agriculture-related use as a permitted use in accordance with the definition which we have established through our application. This slide here lists all the supporting materials which we provided with our application, which have been provided to the different commenting agencies for their review. Right now, we're currently in the process of receiving comments back from internal township departments, as well as from the region and external agencies. As Erica indicated in her presentation, we've received comments from the region and from the Conservation Authority, as well as a couple external agencies. And to date, there have been no objections from any of these commenting agencies on the applications. We do acknowledge the fact that we have received a letter of opposition from a local resident. We've had an opportunity to review this letter and note that a couple of concerns have been raised. In response to this, we want to emphasize the fact that there is no change in use being proposed through this application, that there is no change being proposed to any of the existing structures on the severed or retained lands, and that there is no disturbance being proposed to the existing natural features which are on the retained portion of the property. As indicated in the comments received from the Conservation Authority, they have no objections to this application. It is our opinion that this application has merit, and with that, we are available to answer any questions that councillors or Madam Mayor you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have two speakers, members of the public that have wished to make comments or questions. Please remember you're limited to 5 minutes. And the following have registered. First up, we have Penny Warner.
Yes, so I've been told, Madam Mayor, that Penny is not in attendance.
What about Neil and Audrey Baumeisters?
I believe they are in attendance.
So can we have those, please? Them, please.
Hi, this is Neil and Audrey. We live at 2372 Dundas Street South. Just recently moved here and had the opportunity to meet the folks at the Gleaners establishment. We have no issue with the application.
Thank you very much. So no other comments. Councillors, any comments? Councillor McCreary.
I just have a question about why this is happening. So what's happened here, I guess they built a processing plant and now they want to sever a lot so that it's a unique property. If it had been done the other way, could it have been possible? Could they have severed the lot first and then built the building on it?
Through you, Madam Mayor, based on my prior experience, they chose to go this route just because the property owner wanted to lease the facility to the Gleaners at that time. They didn't have the funds to purchase the property. So I think now that they've worked in that it works with the surrounding area, they've decided to now hand off those lands to the Gleaners. I'm not sure if Andrew has anything else to follow that up on. It's just a financial thing, I think, when they first went through this, that they did it this way.
But I'm saying if they had tried to sever the lot first, I'm not a planner, but I think just from things that I have learned or observed while being on council for the last couple of years, that if they had tried to sever that lot first, to just sever some kind of a building lot off a large piece of farmland, they would probably not have been able to do it. Is that right? It would not have been allowed?
CEO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, through to Councillor McCreary, as Ms. Koek has identified, they would have been eligible for the consent if it was just a blank piece of land, because the proposed use was for an agriculturally related business. And so the provincial policy statement and the township's official plan do make provisions for agriculturally related businesses that need to be located in proximity to agricultural land. Now, the caveat would have been that a site-specific zoning then would have been put in place on that proposed severed lot as a condition of the consent to ensure that once the lot was severed, that the actual activity that would occur through that future building permit would have been that agriculturally related use.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Margaret, and then Councillor Rollman.
So now I'm wondering then, we're being told that there aren't any plans to change the use, but the way this is currently framed, it would be possible to change it because we're not putting any restrictions on. It would, at some point you could change it.
So Madam Mayor, if I could, back to Councillor McCreary, if at some future date, the owner wished to have a different use than what's been narrowly defined and specific to this property, they would actually have to come before council and file a rezoning application. And it would go through the due diligence process, including a statutory public meeting and a decision of Township Council. At that time, that future application would have to be vetted and applied against both the township's official plan and the provincial policy statement, and have to demonstrate conformance with both of those planning instruments.
Okay, so we do have some protection that the use will not change.
Yes, Madam Mayor, through to Councilor McCreary, the site-specific zoning is framed unique to this property, and the definition of what constitutes the agriculture-related use, being the business activity, is very clearly defined.
Councillor Rowland, you had your hand up?
Yes, well, I agree with what Councilor McCreary is saying, and this has happened throughout our township where we've had, permitted uses of properties in rural areas, and then suddenly the farm gate store is now no longer selling just farm items, is bringing in items from other places and selling, not allowed things. Staff don't do anything about it. We see people operating businesses where they're not zoned properly or they don't have the proper licenses. We allow it to happen. So I think what the concern that I've read and the concern that Councilor McCreary raised is that what happens in 10 years when the Gleaners move to a bigger facility somewhere else in our township, let's say, and now we have this building sitting here with not being used. Somebody else moves in there and starts manufacturing or starts millwrighting or something else. Is the township realistically going to stop that usage, or are we going to just look the other way and allow it to happen? And if that's the case, then we have somebody operating a commercial or industrial use in a residential area. And that's what I'm worried about. How do we safeguard that? There are some provisions, I understand that, but how are we going to actually, prevent that from happening in the future?
So Madam Mayor, if I may, back to Councillor Rowland, that is why there's a very, very tight definition that's been narrowly scoped specific to the food processing industry. That has been practicing on the property and is proposed to continue if the consent were to be approved. The only difference is it's a property separate in title. But the definition that's been put in place through the proposed zoning amendment actually provides more certainty, direction, and clarity both to existing and future township councils.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I guess I'll call for the motion, please.
Certainly. So that's moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Osner. That report number PD 14-2020 be received, and that all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for further consideration in a future report to council on a disposition of this matter. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Do you need time to clear out before we start the second one?
Yeah, if you just give staff a chance to
Sure.
switch everyone over.
Ashley,
Yes?
in the revised agenda I have, what page is the next proposal on? Because for some reason I can't find it. I read it on the original one, but I can't find it on this.
PD report 13. It starts on page 44 of the agenda package.
44.
item 4.2 in the bookmarks.
Yeah, I know. For some reason, I couldn't find 4.2. I got it.
Perfect.
Oh, one more thing, Ashley. I had received a call tonight on my way home from a resident up near Hilltop, close to this development. They said that the packages, when the packages were sent out, every other page from the development was missing.
Oh, the notice of public meeting. Yeah, we did get some people who had indicated that they didn't get it. They got every other page. And I know we did send it out to anybody who had indicated that they were missing pages.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just found that out, like I said, at 5:30.
Is everybody in, Cynthia, and we're ready to go?
Yes.
Okay, so if you'd
Thank
like
you.
to proceed, Mayor Foxton.
Okay, I'd like to state that in accordance with the Planning Act, notice was given. The Secretary Treasurer will record everyone who has commented on this application, attended and/or have registered with the Clerk's Division to attend the meeting this evening. Those individuals will be notified of the decision of the convening of future meetings. I'd like to introduce Shahid Magal, Township Planner, who will be presenting this application. Shahid, please.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, and Member of Public. Let me share my screen for presentation. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. So tonight I'm presenting two applications. One is proposed zoning bylaw amendment application ZC01/20, and the second application is proposed draft plans of subdivision, file number 30T20301. The key purpose of this presentation is merely to solicit comment from the interested member of public, government agencies, and other interested member of public that can be reflected in a future report to Council as a part of consideration of the subject proposal, and provide an overview of the proposed development. So the outline of my presentation is on the four components. First, I will discuss about the background and property location. Number two, I will discuss about the policy, planning policy and regulation, how that applies to the proposed development. Number three, I will discuss about the proposed plan for subdivision and rezoning. And I will also share what are the options and what are the analysis identified by staff. So the subject property is located at 1940 Wrigley Road, which is the easterly section of the settlement area. The total land of the property is 8.7 hectare, which is 21.6 acre. The subject land were the site of licensed gravel extraction operation for a number of years. Now the extraction operation has been ceased, with the majority of the site now rehabilitated and filled and graded in preparation for the urban development. So if you go over the environmental features, you can see on the map, the northern land of the subject property is under regulated by GRCA, and associated with the Cedar Creek water course. And the environmental features include the Roswell Swamp Provincial Significant Wetland Complex, Cedar Creek Wetland, and Core Woodland. You can also see on the map, which is highlighted in the yellow color. So it's the site is also the GRC also noted steep slopes on the northern land of the property. And when we see the provincial policy document, there are two high-level documents. by the province. One is provincial policy statement, and the second one is growth plan for Greater Golden Horseshoe. Both documents talk about the same thing, like to encourage development of settlement area, new development development adjacent to the existing build-up area, compact form of development, and appropriate mix of housing options and densities. And that high-level document, the provincial document, dictates to regional official plan. And if you see the regional official plan, that designate the subject land as a greenfield area. And the policy of the regional plan 2.D.1 require the region and municipality will ensure that development occurring with the urban area, creation of complete community development pattern, densities, and appropriate mix of land use that support walking, cycling, and the use of transit. So basically that encourage, mix housing and densities and compact development. And when we see the township official plan policies and regulations, so you will see in the map, the township official plan designate the land as a urban, residential, and ancillary. The key intent of this policy is to accommodate an appropriate range and mix of housing in terms of densities and affordability to satisfy the long-term need of township. And if you see the official plan, by 2031, the official plan forecasts 16,000 population. So the current population is almost like a 10,500. This means we need to accommodate 5,500 population in the township. And when we see the zoning bylaw, the subject land is currently zoned as zone 14, which is aggregate extractions. And the applicant is proposing to rezone the property from zone 14, which is aggregate extraction, to zone 4D, which is residential. And also, exception with the exception provision of the zone 12 and site specific zoning. So let me share the development proposal. As you can see on my screen and the table, the proposed plan of subdivision is proposing like a 174 residential units, 79 units. If you break down the proposed plan of subdivision proposing single detached, which is 79 unit, which is 45% of total units. Semi-detached, which is 30 units, which is and also 17% of the total 174 unit. The plan also proposing townhouses, 37 townhouses, which is 21% of the total residential units, and also proposing 28 stacked townhouse, which is 16%. The subdivision plan also proposing an on-street parking along the park block and the flankage yard throughout the development, and also proposing sidewalks on the side of the street, one side of the street with the internal layout of the plan. So sidewalk be on one side, not two sides. And when we see this draft plan, you will see the applicant is proposing one single access from the Scott Street to this proposed development, and also proposing intersection from Hilltop and Scott Street. The applicant is also proposing two walkway blocks. One is northland of the subject property, which will provide access to the neighboring property, to the northland of the property, and second walkway providing which will provide access to the Wrigley Road, and also we will use that for an emergency access. The applicant also proposing the centrally located park, and also if you see, the municipal services are already available on the site, which will be extended through from the Wrigley Road and Scott Street. The subject site has been operating as gravel pit, as I mentioned before. Therefore, the majority of the property drain internally and is infiltrated. The stormwater management plan proposes to collect stormwater flows generated internally and directed them through an oil grade separator to infiltration facility located on the park block. And if you see on-site control of a stormwater from building roof and rear yard drainage for the lot at perimeter of the plan are proposed to discharge stormwater into rear yard infiltration galleries. Now let me share the zoning bylaw amendment application. As I mentioned before, the subject land is currently zoned as Zone 14 aggregate extraction, and the applicant is proposing to rezone the property Zone 14 to Zone D, which is residential, with exception provision in Zone 12, which is open space. The site-specific zone has already been requested by staff by applicant to accommodate the single-detached dwelling, semi-detached dwelling, townhouses, stacked townhouse condo as well. So you can see on a map, how they propose these like a diverse range of housing and different type of housing on a map. Staff also receive concern and comments from the member of public. So far we received 9 items of correspondence from interested member of public. And also we received as a petition regarding the merits of virtual public meeting and request that a second public meeting be convened. So when we see the comments, the majority of comments are regarding the protection of habitat, protection of natural protection and preserve natural environment, which we have northern land of the subject property. So if we see the draft zoning bylaw also state 8-story apartment building. So the member of public also concerned about the proposed 8-story apartment building, and also concerned about the parking because the applicant is proposing 174 units. So there'll be, they think, there are a lot of, it's a huge development. There'll be a parking issue, and there'll be also parking and transportation issue at the intersection of Hilltop and Scott Street. And that's a intersection where we will provide access to the subject land or proposed development. The member of public also concerned about the safety for the pedestrian and cyclist as well. And we also receive one comment that to integrate the berm into the trail cycling system and not into the residential fabric of the draft plan. So when you see the boundary of along the Wrigley Road, there's berm. So the member of public, they are proposing to integrate into the cycling and trail system. We also circulated the draft plan to agencies and other departments as well. And we received the comments from Regional Municipality of Waterloo. The regional staff has no concern to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application, subject to the inclusion of holding provision in site-specific zoning bylaw requiring a record of site condition for the subject land. The holding provision shall not be released until the region is in receipt of a record of site condition that has been acknowledged by Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Park. So we also received comments from Energy Plus. They mentioned they had no concern, and they also provide some standard comments. For example, if easement is required as a result of this proposal, the applicant will be responsible for all cost. So we also received comments from Waterloo Catholic District School Board. They provided some comments to the installation of sidewalk on one side. And they also mentioned education development charges shall be collected prior to issuance of building permit. They also mentioned supply and erection of sign affixed to development sign advising prospective resident about schools in the area. And they also advise all purchaser and residential units and renter of the same by inserting the clause in all offers of purchase and sales lease. The clause is, in order to limit liability, public school buses operated by students, transportation services or water region, or a sign or successor will not travel on privately owned or maintained right of way to pick up students. And the potential bus student will be required to meet the bus at congregated bus pickup points. We also received comments from GRCA, and GRCA mentioned that they the applicant need to need to address some key items, which is specifically provide a monetary plan to assess the function and performance of stormwater management, and interpret the requirement of public access into the buffer, because the applicant is proposing a walkway to the northland of the subject property. So right now there's no trail at that side. So that's why they're asking why they are proposing what's the requirement. So we also received comments from our township consulting engineer, and the mainly comments are focusing on stormwater management and property graded. So the future comments and assessment will be included in the next report to the council. So staff also considered the future report on the merits of the application will be considering matter including, but not limited to, the effect of proposed development on matters of provincial interest, such as promoting efficient development and land uses, complete community, including parkland, open spaces area, trail linkages, transportation system provided in safe and facilitate the movement of public and goods. Sorry. Yeah, and protection of life and property from hazardous land and impacted by flood and erosion hazard as well. We also need to, we will also consider whether the proposed development conform with the township official plan, and the proposal is desirable for the property, compatible with the adjacent properties. Factor will be assessed like a density, scale, height, massing, visual impact, protection of trees, the suitability of landscape, setback, and dimension and shape of the proposed lot will be assessed as well. There are also other factors that the staff will consider during review this whole plan, the traffic circulation and the point of ingress and egress of the development. What are the impact of traffic from the proposed development on Wrigley Road, Scott Street? Is there any alternative configuration or alternate number of access road into development? How would this affect the internal road lot layout of plan, and visibility for motorists entering, exiting the development on Wrigley Road and Scott Street corridor, pedestrian and cyclist safety, and is the block park appropriately in size, recognizing the dual functions of infiltration stormwater management system and parket as well. And we will also consider the point that are there trail connection and interface with the adjacent land possible? Appropriate mechanism to address site requirements such as drainage, grading, site servicing, stormwater management, production of natural features, tree preservation, urban designs, and compatibility as well. So at this moment, the staff recommending to council that all comments and correspondence received from the member of public and government agencies through the consultation process be returned to staff for future report to council on disposition of this matter. Thanks.
Thank you, Shahid. Now I'm going to ask that Chris Isley from Cambridge Aggregate Services, the owner, Andrew Head, acting for the applicant, and Chris Togeritz and Abraham from Meritech. Would you like to speak?
Hi, how are you?
Good,
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. All right. Yeah, I'd like to speak to this matter. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, members council, my name is Andrew Head from Dryden Smith and Head Planning Consultants. I'm here on behalf of Cambridge Aggregate Services, owner of 1940 Wrigley Road. With me tonight is Chris Togeritz, virtually someplace, from Meritech Engineering, who will be able to advise on some of the bigger engineering questions that we may or may not have. I'm just kind of regurgitate a little bit of some of the stuff that Shahid has expressed already, just to, it's part of a refresher and how we take care of things. So the public meeting is for a zone change to support the draft plan of subdivision to allow 174 residential units to be constructed on the subject lands. The zone change will see the existing use of the mineral extraction, which is a depleted gravel pit, Zone 14 changed to residential zoning to allow for a mix of single-family dwellings, which would include semi-detached street-fronting townhouses and a cluster townhouse block. The subject lands are 8.75 hectares in size and that are within the settlement boundary, bordering the countryside line. The former use of the gravel pit was a gravel pit that has been depleted of its resources, and it has been filled with engineered fill with a fill management plan, and all the dump trucks were regularly inspected to ensure that the engineered fill was going into the site. That was part of the initiation and part of to rehabilitate to allow for this residential development. As some of you are aware, owner driven, we had actually started with an open house to freely converse with the neighborhood and the Ayr residents about this development. Notices were hand delivered to each of the dwelling units within 120 meters of the subject lands, and we advertised in the Ayr News. On October 3rd, 2019, at the Fire Hall Community Center, we hosted a meeting with over 29 people signed in from 24 different addresses. Our head count showed around 50 people were in attendance. The concerns of the neighborhoods had provided to us at that time were traffic, noise, access, and density. One of the things that we have to keep into consideration is with density, the region of Waterloo and the Township of North Dumfries, the official plans mandate the amount of density and the targets that we're required to have. To meet these requirements, we're required to provide semi-detached street fronting and cluster townhouse dwelling options as part of the housing mix. The density is in keeping with the similar recent subdivisions as approved in Ayr. At the pre-consultation meeting, planning staff directed us to provide for 55 to 65 persons per hectare. The current plan that we have in front of us is 56 people per hectare. Traffic was a big hot topic. Obviously, Ayr is seeing a lot of growth, and we got some growing pains that are happening in Ayr, and maybe some regional infrastructure and some changes to some of the roads are going to have to happen in the near future. Many residents spoke about speeding on Wrigley Road and Scott Street, and generally as a whole in Ayr. Concerns that were heard about how the subdivision would increase the traffic congestion at peak hours. Our development team included a traffic engineer who completed a traffic impact study that focused on the roads and major arteries close to the subdivision, and noted in the recommendations that no additional improvements would be required and the development should be approved as proposed. The TIS traffic impact study noted that the intersections would function as designed and do not require upgrades. We have not heard back from the region of Waterloo on the traffic impact study to date. We reviewed access to the subdivision from two locations, one at the top of the hill from across. Can I share my screen? This screen? Am I sharing?
You should be able to, Andrew.
There we go. Thank you. Okay, so we explored two options for our access points.
Andrew, we don't see that yet.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so we looked at two places for the intersection, and as you can see, both where the existing walkway between lots 9 and 10, right here, we looked at this location, or this general location for access. But part of our problem with this is this was where the truck traffic used to come through into the gravel pit. So there's a large hill going up here onto Wrigley Road. So the truck traffic, now of course trucks have a different speed limit and to get in and out of town than cars do. But we had that back in the day, way back some time ago, this had to be an easement over top of these lands to access the gravel pit to allow for safe traffic in and out. So this access has now been closed. So we had to look at what was the best options. One was at the top of the hill, and the other one is across from the fire hall, which I just talked about, and then one across the street from Hilltop Drive. Now, due to the limited sight lines, the only choice was to provide a single loaded access from the Hilltop Drive. The proposed access is located on Hilltop at the intersection would change quite a bit dramatically with the reconstruction of Wrigley Road to include sidewalks and bike lanes. The existing berm adjacent to the subject lands heading west from the Hilltop subdivision, see if I can bring that up to you. This existing berm here is obviously going to be cut to increase the sight lines. This is the trigger point. This here is the Hilltop at the. Oh, you guys can't see it yet. Okay, so we're back to the subdivision here, and what we did with this access is we increased the width and the throat of the access to a 24-meter wide throat. This will allow vehicles to turn in and out of the subdivision without an issue, as well as if there's left-hand turning lanes, they'll be stacked. Now, if there's ever an accident or something like that, the limit of this, we have the emergency access / walkway to get any type of emergency vehicles through. We met with regional staff and we asked them about where they'd like the walkway location. Staff, and I quote, staff agreed that it would be preferable to locate the proposed municipal access across from Hilltop Drive. The changes to grading would need to match the future road grading along Regional Road 49. The region has identified this section of Wrigley Road for reconstruction for 2023, and the project would include sidewalks and cycle lanes. This is from Cheryl Marcy. We haven't got comments back from her on the traffic impact study yet. The single loaded access was designed with that intent. We had also looked at the exploration because we know there's going to be a lot of people walking across here. We had designs prepared to prepare and install a refuge island in here. At our meeting with regional staff, they said that they're not going to support this in any way, shape, or form because it doesn't meet their triggers. I'm hoping at some point in time that council and your honorable mayor will be able to take this up with the region of Waterloo, and we can find a way to ensure that we're going to have safe crossings at this location. Parking was always going to be a subject. On-street parking was considered in the design of the subdivision with sidewalks located on one side of the street. If you note, all of the larger lots have sidewalk in front of them, and the smaller lots in the subdivision do not have sidewalks, allowing for a longer driveway so that they can have the ability to stack cars, sometimes 2, maybe even 3 cars deep, not including the space in the garage. Another factor for this subdivision is the environmental features. They're quite a distance away. As part of the complete applications, we were required to prepare an environmental impact study from our EIS. It was concluded the subject lands are devoid of any significant vegetation as a result of the previous use as a gravel pit operation. No nationally, provincially rare, or threatened species or wildlife habitat for species at risk were identified and found within the development parcel. I'm confident that a fully built subdivision with trees, bushes, and flower gardens would be a great addition over a gravel pit on the natural system. We're aware that the lands adjacent to the subdivision, where they're currently agriculture and outside the settlement area, have potential for gravel extraction in the future. Preemptive measures for this have been addressed in the design of lots backing onto this area to keeping the lots deeper and keeping the existing berm, the natural earthen berm, in place and to act as a future noise berm. Consideration was given to the private property to the north of for future development connectivity. Due to the grades and slopes, it was determined that this is not feasible. Although these lands are not under any type of development application, our design includes a walkway. Our design includes a walkway right here. Oops, sorry, right there. That leads to private property, and any pedestrian connectivity should be discouraged until a time when the public access is granted to these lands or they're redeveloped. Between the steep grades, private property, between the steep grades, as you can see on the GRCA map, let's hope this works. All these dark yellow and light mustard colors, those are considered steep grades and slopes. It makes it pretty much inaccessible for vehicular or pedestrian traffic. That's why we located our walkway where it was located. Between the steep grades and the private property to the north and the existing the existing settlement limits, there's no real opportunities for connectivity or cycling or pedestrian walkways or pedestrian connectivity through the system. There are, without some major changes, maybe the development of the adjacent lands, but the slopes still have a major impact on that. There are 4 existing residents that border the subject property. The lot directly to the north of the subject property here is private property and has steep slopes, so we can't get access there. The land's further regulated by is further regulated by the GRCA to protect the adjacent wetlands. Township staff requested that we explore the potential street connection to these lands, and it's unattainable due to the steep slopes. There are three lots front onto Scott Street, which are very large in size at 0.4, 0.57, and 0.86 acres. Two or three of those lots will share a rear yard with 3 other proposed lots. The existing residences are situated about 304 and 305 meters above sea level. The rear lot line at the back of these lots is about approximately 310 or 311 meters in elevation. From the back of the existing houses, there will be at least 30 feet up and over 100, from my calculations, it looks like it's about 30 feet up a slope and about 120 feet away from the proposed houses. The corner lot here, this largest lot here, is situated at least 120 feet from both the rear and the side lot lines, as proposed to the closest residence, which, as proposed, the closest residence would be at least 145 meters from this existing house. This proposal is in keeping. How do I turn this off? Oops. I don't know how to get back. Did I lose you?
You're still here.
Okay.
We're still here.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, great. All right. Okay. I'm just trying to get out of this. Well, in closing, this proposal is in keeping with the provincial policy statement, the growth plan, and for the Golden Horseshoe, the regional official plan, and designating the township official plan as urban and residential auxiliary use, which is intended to accommodate a mix of housing. I trust that as you review this material and our request for a zone change, that you will agree with the upper tier approval authorities. As we move forward, we can count on your support for this development, knowing it is in keeping with all of the governing bodies. Rehabilitating an old gravel pit for residential development is a wise choice and a good planning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Now I'm going to go to the public. I'm going to go through each one by one. Please remember you're limited your comments to no more than 5 minutes. And the first one up is Douglas W. Stewart. Douglas? Chris, can you remove your presentation, please? Or Andrew, please.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Thank you.
There we go.
If I may begin, to the mayor and members of council, I'm here on behalf of the owners of a property that is adjacent to the proposal. Their address is 100 Scott Street. First and foremost, you would have received from us a very extensive response in a written form, and it's part of the agenda package. I want to point out that our understanding is that the intent here is through the official plans, both the regional and the township, that this is going to be made use of some form of as a potential, and we do not we have no objection to that principle. But I think we have to take a step back and look and make sure if this is the correct proposal. So in our detailed comment, our first comment to you is council should look at this and say, is there a potential opportunity here that is not being taken advantage of? There's an earth berm, which from our view, if you looked at it through our photographs and our presentation, it has the potential to become a part of the park extension and make use of it for both cycling and such, and connect not only this plan, but also the adjacent lands in between, and potentially even to the up to the downtown core, and as well as the recreation. So our first request of you is step back and make sure that the earth berm, which could be a great feature, is protected and isn't consumed within, again, the proposed residential. What we also have a concern is the access from both a vehicular point of view, as well as, more importantly, from a pedestrian point of view. What was pointed out is there's going to be a future study, an EA, and that EA is an important part. It is, as identified in the information, to be completed in 2021 or 2022. Who knows what that timing is? It forms an important piece to ensure that before the plan is advanced, before a decision is made, the EA should be completed and without prejudicing by this proposed plan. This plan it's confusing to us. It has townhouses stacked, but then in the bylaw, it permits an apartment. It has single detached residential that faces Scott and Wrigley Street, but the garages are in the back, and they speak about, well, that's how it's been done done before in air, and yet there are still some lots that will back on to Wrigley. The group that I'm acting for, they have fairly big residential, and where there are right now 3, there will be 14 proposed. All of the technical reports, I don't think all match up to what's being presented here. I don't think they've appropriately addressed all of the policy configurations. Again, since I only have a restricted amount of time, I ask council and staff to review the written submission, which goes into a little bit more explanation. I think what's also important here is this is not only a public meeting for the proposed amendment to the bylaw, it's also a public meeting, the statutory, for the proposed plan of subdivision. I'm not sure this reflects the way the official plan did contemplate how this land would come into play as providing residential. It's special. It's not the traditional. And I guess I just ask that you step back and take a look and say, is there an opportunity here we'll have missed? Has the developer got it correct? Do we have all the right information? I think, and you answer every one of those questions, I think council should step back and say, I think we can do better. And this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Douglas. Next up is Christina Pauliska and Justin Various. Good evening. I can't hear you. Your mic's off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor and councillors. We are the residents of 100 Scott Street, and we would just like to reiterate what Douglas Stewart of IBI did state. We did work together to prepare the letter, so we do ask councillors to review it and take our concerns into consideration. We also we look at this as an opportunity for air and would like to make sure that any development that abuts our property is in fact right for air and gets it right, and that it improves our community and has a right fit, whether it's the density, connectivity, or otherwise. And in our opinion, we have to state that there's some serious concerns and we ask councillors to take those into consideration. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Darcy Belloc.
Mute. There you go. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the meeting. Just want to reiterate that this is probably one of the largest subdivisions probably in the history of AIR, and I think that we need to step back like previous.
Actually, Darcy, it's not. It's probably mid-sized compared. It's not one of the largest at all. But carry on, please.
All right. Thanks for your clarification, but we still need to go cautiously with this one. We all know I'm going to go on public that I had proposed a petition earlier in the month of, or late in the month of July, about doing this not virtually, and I've talked about it and I understand why we need to do it virtually at this time. I want to make sure that we get it right so that in 20 years we're not doing things virtually. So we need to plan properly, population wise and everything. My biggest concerns with this, my property is right on the corner, and if you looked at the picture of the proposed subdivision, my property juts out into the sight lines that are proposed. One of my biggest concerns is there's a natural ridge, and I'm going to contest that it's not a berm, but a natural ridge that runs the front of that property and along the side of my property that needs to be dealt with delicately so that my property doesn't become something that happens when erosion takes away from the beauty of my property and I lose trees. I'm going to tell this group I have about 1,000 trees on my property and I want every one of them to last. So that's one of my biggest concerns is. The other biggest concern I have is speed awareness. I was actually off today and the speed going down Scott Street doesn't match with some of the study that I saw. I glanced through it and I think that I'm going to ask council to ask the region to do a speed awareness and data gathering on Scott Street. We actually would want to probably do it both ways because your people are accelerating up Scott Street out of town past my house, most likely way above the speed limit, above the 10 kilometers that the report was done upon. So I really would like that to be part of something that we look for in the future, that it's a regional road, and I'm asking this council to ask the region to do a speed awareness and a data collection on Scott Street. The other thing is, I believe is it Douglas, the first presenter?
Douglas Stewart?
Yes, he talked about how vague it is with the 8-story apartment in this bylaw, and I really don't understand that. I need some more clarification on that one. It doesn't match with the current bylaw. Is the current bylaw a 5-story regulation? I don't know, but I want some clarification on that because in the planning it doesn't show anywhere where you have an 8-story structure. The other problem that I have, and it's access to the community for an individual that lives with us that has a disability. She has a mobility issue, and we need to make sure that she can access the community across Scott Street and be able to enjoy the community. And right now, even without the current subdivision and the speed that's going down there and the amount of cars that is on Scott Street, we struggle to get across that street. So there needs to be some consideration for that type of individual in this, and I don't see that, and I don't feel that we're talking really strong numbers when it comes to the traffic report that was put forward. So I'm going to challenge that one, and I want to make sure that we're making good decisions on how many people we're actually putting on the streets, because this is a very busy street to begin with, and if we continue to put more people on the street and less how would you say it, traffic control, we're going to have some issues that aren't going to be very pretty when we have to take care of the people that are around us. Those are my biggest concerns, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak at this meeting. Thank you.
Are you done, Darcy?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Next we have Michelle Smith and Don Markle. Where are you, Mick?
Hi, thanks. Mayor Foxton. Yeah, we have pretty much the same concerns that we're already hearing. Yes, the speed on this road is ridiculous anymore. And sometimes I feel like if you just maybe put a ramp in for me so I could get out in the morning, that'd be great. Anyways, no, it's getting very serious. And the stop sign at Hilltop, it's kind of a, I guess we'll use it if we feel like it, or sometimes it's just kind of roll through, and sometimes we speed up when we get there. Anyways, it is dangerous. Thankfully, you have a crossing guard for the children. But beyond that, just regular pedestrians getting around. It's kind of set up kind of funny anyway. And I think when drivers come up there, that you could be halfway across the street by the time they see you. So that's already an issue there. And then you're going to have all this extra traffic coming out. And I know traffic's been brought up again and again, but I'm afraid of hearing this. Sorry, we can't do anything about it because it's a regional road. If I've heard that once, I've heard it a million times, and that's concerning. But right now, I hope that council is able to say a little bit right now while the planning and have some sort of influence at this point. Because once it's all said and done, I know those are the words I'm going to hear. I can't do anything. It's a regional road. So, and then during construction, I mean, it's going to be kind of crazy too. So the big thing that I would love to see is I would love to see the reduction in the residences I'd love to see it cut in half. And I'd also like to see some senior housing going up. I still feel that we need more of that, although I'm not the one that has done the studies. So with that said, then I'm also concerned with our fire department right there, and during all the construction again, how they're getting in and out, because they do go out quite a bit. I'm sure Mr. Shantz will address that when it gets to him. So, and then on a personal note, good Lord, I have dealt with so much over the past 30 years. Like, it's just one more thing. And I just hope that it's done as responsibly as possible. And I think that the council, I really think you've really got to dig your feet in here and just make sure that every little T is crossed and every I is dotted, and get whatever we can out of them to make it the nicest we can for the community. And I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Michelle. And on Janet Millwood. Janet? Hi, Janet.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I'm another Scott Street resident, and I don't really want to go over the things that have already been said, because I totally agree with the major issues, which are traffic issues and the safety of crossing. But I was perturbed by the Waterloo District School Board having buses not going into the subdivision. That, if I read that correctly, which means they will be parking on Scott Street or Hilltop to drop off and pick up students, which I think could be a very serious problem with students crossing the road there. And looking at the density, I would have to agree with the last speaker, Michelle, that I think there's just too many houses in this subdivision. If you've got 174 properties, you could easily have 300 cars going in and out at maximum times, which is quite significant as far as turning lanes. And so I was hoping that you could have a left-hand turn lane going into the subdivision to help with that. Also, how to get there over the one-lane bridge, and we're already seeing quite congestion there with the Northumberland Street being closed, and so that is just going to continue. I see that as, you know, with that number of cars going in and out, and we know that from Ayr residents that, you know, we are two-car households. Most people have to travel to work, get groceries to the arena. So those properties are going to have two vehicles attached to them. and the stormwater management. Also, I mean, we had some nice rainstorms the other day, and the water was running down the road, down Scott Street, and into our yard already. If that's subdivision allows for the water to run off more, there'll be more runoff water down Scott Street, then you're going to have to look at managing that better. Otherwise, we're all going to be flooded at the bottom of the hill. So thank you very much for having this virtual meeting, and those are my comments.
Thank you, Janet. Good comments. Harry Frosius, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, Harry. Do we have Harry?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. No, that was actually very well pronounced pronunciation. Thank you very much for that. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. My name is Harry Frusios. I'm with Zelenka Priamo Limited. We're the planning consultants for William and Pamela Hall. They're the owners of the property next to the north and to the west at 30 Scott Road. And their lands actually referred to as the Hall residential lands in the proponent's planning report. We had provided a letter in advance. Hopefully you've seen it in your package this evening, providing our comments. I just wanted to touch upon them briefly, just for the benefit of everyone who's listening in tonight, and just maybe add a little bit more to it. We've had a bit more time to look at it more carefully since we provided the letter. Again, as I noted, the Halls live next door at 30 Scott Street. They have a residence there that's been for, okay, sorry, I will start the video. Hopefully it's a little dark in my room. Hopefully everybody can see that okay. The Hall families lived in this property for about 7 generations. The existing single detached dwelling was built back in the 19th century, and several generations have lived on the site since then and plan to continue to do so for the foreseeable future. There's also been some agricultural activity that's taken place over the years, and that's something they would like to continue with as well. There was some suggestion in the planning report that there could be proposed development on these lands, but the lands are zoned, or they're designated open space. They're zoned environmental protection 1. You've heard that there's a lot of grading issues. So potential development opportunities that are suggested in the report simply do not exist on these lands right now. We're not opposed in principle to the proposed development of residential uses on the subject property, but we do have some concerns with the zoning amendments. First of all, and that is principally with the draft zoning amendment, which includes an 8-story apartment building. And the concerns we have with that is there's a couple of them. First of all, it's that in the notice, there was no suggestion of an 8-story apartment building being included as part of the proposed development. There's no justification or information provided in any of the reports that were submitted with the application. This is something that is from what I understand, reading the municipal bylaws, this is something that would be very new and unique to the municipality. Currently, your bylaws have a restriction on height of 3 stories in the general provision. The standard bylaw permits buildings that are no higher than 13.5 meters. There's a couple of exceptions that allow for 4-story apartments, but nothing beyond that I'm aware of in your zoning bylaw that allows anything above 4 stories. So in my opinion, there should have been some justification provided to go that high, especially on a local road in this subdivision that's going to be accessed through one access point. We don't know anything about the density of this development, about the apartment building. We don't know if the traffic can handle it. We don't know what the compatibility issues are and how they'll be addressed. Abutting properties, I mean, there's overlook issues through this property onto my client's lands. None of that's been assessed. So in my opinion, to be asking for an 8-story apartment building without providing any backup or any justification at this point would be inappropriate. And beyond that, I think we believe that there should be a new, if the proponents want to proceed with that, there should be another notice sent out that properly outlines the nature and extent of what's being asked for. There's no apartment building shown on any plan, no drawings, nothing that would suggest that there's an even realistic intent to provide that kind of use in the property. If that's the case, it shouldn't be permitted in our submission. I would even suggest that on block 102, based on the fact that it's located further up the north in the subdivision, it's probably better suited to have to extend the single and semi-detached lots and to have your straight townhouses or other lower or other medium forms of density along Scott Street or towards that main intersection where you have more accessibility and traffic doesn't become as much of a concern as you go into the subdivision. And the justification was noted that the regulations that are being asked for have been accepted previously in the municipality, and that should be sufficient. I don't agree with that. In any instance, any property, any proposal should be assessed on its own merits and how it relates to its surroundings and how it's compatible with abutting uses. So just because it's been approved before in the municipality doesn't mean it should be appropriate at this location as well. So in our letter, we've outlined that we don't believe that the proposed zoning amendment, at least as it relates to block 102, is consistent with the public meeting requirements under the Planning Act. It's not consistent with the provincial policy statement. We don't know if these development standards are appropriate as per section 1134 of the PPS. As I said, there hasn't been sufficient justification given for it. And it's not consistent with the township official plan, as we have not seen any rationale as to how the compatibility issues under section 3.11 of the official plan have been addressed. With respect to the draft plan of subdivision application, we do have two comments that we'd like to see looked at. And the first is the walkway, block 105. It was brought up earlier. This walkway would directly access our client's property. And as I've mentioned, there is no future development opportunities for these lands. It's natural heritage. It's challenged through its grading. The current owners want to stay there and live on that property. So any connection into that property would be seen as trespassing and would be seen as a liability for anyone coming onto that property. So at this point in time, we're asking to remove that walkway as there is no basis or justification for it, as you'd be entering into private property, and our clients do not want to have that connection on their lands. And second is the request
Harry,
for fencing.
Excuse me, Harry, you're down. You already used your 5 minutes. I'll give you a chance to wind up now, please.
I'm finishing up, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
And lastly, just the request for fencing along the entire perimeter of our clients' lands abutting the subdivision. I wanted to add to that we also would request to have vegetation or trees planted along that property line as well, just to add some more buffering and to break up and soften up the monotony of a fence along the property line. So thank you for allowing me to go beyond my 5 minutes, Madam Chair. If you have any questions, I'd certainly be happy to answer them for you.
Thank you very much. And I believe Bill and Pam Hall are next. I saw them here before.
Yeah, hang on 1 second here.
Okay.
There, am I on?
Yep, looks like you're on.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Foxton and members of council. Thanks for allowing Harry and I to take the time. I'll keep it quick because Harry outlined most of our concerns. Yeah, the first one is the 8-story zoning bylaw. I think most in town would agree that it really doesn't belong up there, and I don't know if it was an oversight or what that was, but I think everyone would feel better if the 8 stories was removed from the zoning bylaw. Otherwise, yeah, the walkway on our property, it just, the thought of having a walkway onto our land, whether anybody uses it or not, it's just a little bit presumptuous and a little offensive, I think. I don't think anybody would like sort of a public access for some reason onto their road or onto their property, sorry. And then just, we would like to do our best to maintain our privacy and limit the trespassing through, kind of a substantial fence that's not easily scalable or just, somebody putting a gate into it, because as I think a few councillors know, that there has been issues with some of the neighborhood probably kids, we'll assume they're kids, trespassing on our property and, you know, building forts. And there is a conservation easement on our property. So, you know, I'm obligated to sort of be the steward of that land and keep it as pristine as I can. And I just know it's too much fun for these kids to stay out. So we have to do what we can to keep them out. I think that's about it. Anyways, I appreciate your time, and I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks, Pam. Next, we have Iris Welch.
He's not in attendance, Madam Mayor.
Iris is not in attendance?
No,
Okay.
he's not here.
Richard Toten. Richard, are you there?
There we go. Okay, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. There's a number of issues I'd like to address. First of all, I disagree with Mr. Head on the density thing. If you got rid of the stacked housing, for instance, that brings it down to 146 units. That's still puts you in between the 55 and 66 you're looking for. And it works out to the difference between the two is 2.75 persons per household versus 2.25 or 3.25 persons per household. So it's not a big increase in the amount of people by getting rid of. I don't like the idea of having stacked housing. And now that I hear about an 8-story apartment building, now if you really got my dander up. I have other things. The About It Associates report identifies that they've been on the site. I only see they were on site for the environmental assessment initially in 2017, 2018. And there's been no subsequent reporting of what was in the fill that went into the site. I couldn't find in any of the reports other than that they had a process in place to say that they monitored all the trucking that was brought in, but there's nothing to say that the fill was in fact good. The other thing is, you know, what's the water like now? In one of the reports, it said the last time the water was tested was in 2012, and we don't know what the water's been like. So is there a chance of the contamination into the creek from the fill? Because we don't have that information in front of us. I happen to agree. Now I'm going to move on to traffic. I happen to agree with a lot of the comments. I've read through the Paradigm traffic reports. It's interesting the number of trips that they've identified, 174 residences, and they're only showing 114 AM trips and 150 PM peak hour trips. I don't know anybody who's lived in the Hilltop subdivision knows a peak hour. Well, even in a further report that I found that showed coming out of our subdivision, we're in the 400 range coming out of the subdivision here, and we're going to add. And they're saying they're only going to get 114 out and 100. I can't see that. We don't have public transit in there. So some of the other things that was discussed was that the numbers that they're using includes public transit. So I have a concern over that. One of the reports identified putting a traffic island in, which I thought was a good idea. The only thing is that where they identified it was on the west side of the intersection, and the sidewalks are all on the east side of the subdivision. So that kind of was a concern. What else? Well, other than that, like I say, I'm worried about the groundwater sensitivity in that area with what was filled with. We saw a lot of trucks coming in here. I have no idea what they had coming in. Some of them had clay and other things on it. I don't know where it came from. It doesn't look like it's local. Was it compacted good enough? If you're talking about an 8-story building, I know what happened down at Kirkwood, where they had to drill and put extra foundations in because the ground wasn't dense enough. Have they looked at that and say, is the ground in fact dense enough to put any housing in there at all? So there's nothing in any of the reports I've read here. So thank you for allowing me to speak my mind.
Thank you, Richard. And I believe next we have Ron Furlong.
Ron is not in attendance, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Nancy Wheeler and Tim Hall.
So these two individuals have came on separately, so we can start, if you'd like, with Nancy and then move to Tim.
Please.
Okay.
Do we have Nancy?
Yes, she's here.
I don't see her or hear her.
Oh, there she is.
No, this is Laura Hall. And on behalf of Tim Hall and Tim and myself and Nancy, at this time, we don't have anything to say during the meeting because we provided a letter to council earlier today. Thank you.
So what's happening here?
Madam Mayor, Mrs. Wheeler indicated that they submitted a letter earlier today.
Right.
And they just wanted to reinforce what was in their correspondence of today. They are the owners of the lands to the east of the subject property.
Yes, and I believe they wanted fencing,
That's correct.
what was it called? Non-something fencing.
Non-scalable.
Thank you very much. And okay, and so Tim Hall is also included in that, and he's done?
I believe so.
So Christiana Zukowski?
She's currently not in attendance either.
Okay. Do you know what? Christiana had a comment about her property, and I just want to make sure Shahid had it. I have it here. She said that she believed that there was no plans for development at the back of her property, 94 Scott Street. And she asked us to confirm that. So Shahid, could we get back to her and confirm to her whether there is any future development behind 94 Scott Street or not? Thank you. Okay, so next we have Pam Hutchison. Is Pam here?
She is, yes.
Now, I know this is new to Pam, so if anybody can help her out along the way, that would be wonderful.
Pam, I'm just asking you to unmute. Can you unmute your device?
Cynthia, you may have to direct her to where the mute and unmute is.
Pam, you can unmute the bottom left hand of your screen.
Tell her it looks like the red microphone with the line through it.
Or if this is Herb, Herb, you can unmute by clicking on the microphone icon that has a red line through it, and that will unmute you. Okay, if you'd like to go to the next person, we're going to try to call Herb or Pam Hutchison.
Thank you very much. Charlene Wood, Shar. Do we have Shar? She was here before.
Yep, we have her.
Thank you.
Oh, there we go. Oh, you just have to
Hi there.
unmute yourself.
I just did. It should be unmuted. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry, I wasn't quite prepared to speak because I was planning on sending in a letter. Big concerns. I have two small children who are 10, 11. When this was going in, I was living on Scott Street. They had to cross the road to get to Cedar Creek School. The traffic was brutal. Sometimes they'd wait at the bottom of the driveway to cross the road for 10 minutes because the traffic was so busy. Putting in 174 more units is going to make that much busier. If you have 174 units of two-story family homes, townhomes, condos, how many of those families are going to have children who are also crossing Scott Street? There will be increased traffic due to all these homes as well. Air is full of two-story homes. We do not have a lot of bungalows in town. Where are our aging adults going to move when they can no longer go up and down stairs? Have we considered putting in bungalows for seniors? Have we considered the condos? Have we considered making them accessible for seniors as well? Have we considered putting in a community center in that area to allow for a community center for seniors to go to? Perhaps a community garden. The yards look extremely small. Is anybody going to be able to have a community garden? Has that been considered? On top of all the other points that others have made, I think we have to look at safety as number one. There's only one entrance and exit. If there's a fire and we have to evacuate that subdivision, how is all the traffic going to leave? You're looking at 300 plus cars, as I believe has been said. This is air. We do not have public transportation. Therefore, most houses will be most houses will have two vehicles instead of one. People do have to get to work. They have to get to appointments. And I think we have to consider the increased traffic and the number of units. If you have more units catered to our aging adults, that should decrease the number of vehicles coming and going at prime times. It may also decrease the number of vehicles because many seniors may only require one vehicle instead of two because they are not working. I think that's everything.
Thank you very much, Shar. Have a good night. And have we heard from Pam and Herb Hutchison yet?
Yes, so staff were able to connect with them and they have no additional comments. They're just listening.
Okay, thank you. Next, I'd like Matthew. Matthew, are you there? Matthew Conley? He was, he's down in the bottom corner.
Hello.
Hi, Matthew.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Matthew Colley. I'm the regional planner, the Region Waterloo, that I'm on this file. I'm more here to just listen in right now. I definitely appreciate and understand the concerns that are being brought up by residents, and that they will continue to be addressed through the region and township's review of these applications. I would like to know one thing in terms of transportation that may help clear things up a little bit. I know the traffic impact study, which has been made available for public review, that is still under review by regional staff, so I don't have comments on that at this time. I do know that it is not proposing, as many of you I'm sure have read, any additional road improvements. Based on Andrew Head's previous comments about regional staff's position about a pedestrian refuge island, I'm not the one who reviews those materials, so I apologize. I don't have the expertise or background. It's more just, from my understanding, the triggers were in place based on the data provided for the region to require that at this time. However, I would like to note, given through the EA process that is going to be conducted on Scott Street and that area, that those types of matters would be considered through the EA process. So it is potentially possible that this island, or further traffic calming measures may be required through the further development of the road. And lastly, in terms of, I know there's been comments about the berm along the portion of the property there. As the traffic study shows, there's issues with, or there's the deficiencies in the sight line distances. And that's why I think is the reasoning for the proposal to remove that berm to ensure there's more appropriate sight line distances for the increase in traffic. However, again, the AA process is going to be underway, and a lot of these traffic related measures will be discussed or evaluated through that process. Again, I'm not on that project, but I can certainly touch base with that group and through our review, as well as if there's anyone who has concerns or wants to discuss that further, I can certainly point them in the right direction.
Matthew, you're a very brave man because, as you probably know, I am the vice chair of the roads for the region.
Yes.
And
Yes.
So I've got a few things that I want you to look into or add to your thing. And one is the traffic impact study. Also the refuge island, the turn lane, turning left into going off Wrigley, sidewalks on Wrigley. If we're going to have, and they had at the top of on the most easterly side, a walkway coming out, but we have no sidewalk there. So we would not want to encourage children to walk out and come down on the road. So the region will have to look at sidewalks there.
Okay.
Also, the need for bike lanes, if there's going to be bike lanes. So also, is the region going to be putting those sidewalks in? Speed coming down Wrigley Road is a huge issue. So we would probably want some traffic calming coming down Wrigley Road before that area, and a fair distance before they get into the town. We do have to worry about all the children crossing.
For sure.
Because they will have to cross one of our busiest roads. This is the second busiest road going in and out of our community.
For sure.
And so these are huge issues for us people. So, and I will bring you more to this at Region. So thank you, Matthew. So sorry you had to speak tonight.
No problem at all. I'm happy to be here and happy to help and make sure that the appropriate development goes in that takes into all the considerations that are necessary to make sure everyone is comfortable. Again, I'm sure as this process goes on, all involved will be having further conversations on traffic and transportation matters related to this development. And
I also want the entrance moved further east. I do not, so where they propose the walkway is where I actually would prefer the in and outs to be, rather than right across. It's too much of a pinch point to have it right across from Hilltop, in my opinion.
Okay, perfect.
Thank
I have
you,
made
Matthew.
those notes. I'll make those notes and I will certainly follow up with regional staff. And as I said, the regional staff are still undertaking review of the TIS. And I can also follow up if a lot of these matters would be, that you've pointed out, Madam Mayor, will be addressed through the EA process as well. And we will certainly follow up with the township and have those conversations moving forward.
Thank you, Matthew.
No
Next,
problem.
we have
Thank you.
Jennifer Shannon. Do we have Jennifer?
I think I'm unmuted. Sorry, it's Scott
There you
Shannon.
Oh, hi, Scott.
Hi,
Yeah,
it's
didn't think you sounded like
Jennifer's
Jennifer.
husband, of course. Yeah. First of all, I'd like to thank the mayor and council for the time tonight, and obviously what you guys do for the community. It's greatly appreciated. Obviously, I share the concerns that a lot of people have mentioned against the traffic situation, and I don't think there's many days I don't warn my children before they go out of the house that, be careful on Scott Street. It's obviously with the increased traffic recently, it's just even worse. But to add more cars, an undernumbered estimation, in my opinion, as well, to that situation just seems a little crazy. Someone's bound to get hurt at that intersection, especially. So yeah, I definitely share the concerns that everyone else has there. Yeah, and then Mayor as well, you mentioned moving it out of town. I completely support something like that, seeing as it just moves the traffic further out. If we can do some more studies into that. Not quite sure how it works with these traffic studies and how they work, and whether there's things as second opinions or something like that, but it sounded like Matthew was going to review it again. So it sounds like there is a process to review, just because in my line of work, one study or one opinion doesn't always solve the problem. So as long as we're considering a second opinion, I would appreciate that. The only other things, oh, the berm across the from essentially Stanley Street there. Yeah, I think it was Darcy who mentioned just there's some trees there that are very well established, and hopefully the environmental assessment, I believe it's called, it would assess what, you know, the movement of those. But again, I like those trees. I like the sight lines up Scott Street. It's a well-established sight line, and I'd like to see that retained. Yeah, and again, I share the concerns of obviously a lot of people as well about the population density concern. My family moved there to essentially avoid the high population density neighborhoods that are put in, and unfortunately, we've got one moving close to us. So I have concerns with that as well. So if I could ask council to do what they could to again make that as low as the law allows, and I would greatly appreciate that assistance.
Thank you very much, Scott. Anything further? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. That's all I have. Thanks, Sue.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Dave and Jillian Pies, but also before you get Dave and Jillian, Matthew, can you add the berm in, please? If we move the entrance further up, we would be able to retain the berm, as it is a nice feature coming down. Sorry.
No,
Dave
I
and
will
Jillian.
add
Thank
that
you,
to the
Matthew.
list.
Sorry,
Dave and Jillian Pies.
Foxton, can I ask you a quick question? Just one quick question. Before we start putting in requests for changes to the town or to the region, are we going to discuss this as council?
Yes, that's next up after Dave and Jillian are the last one. Dave and Jillian Pies.
Okay, I keep
I know I
hearing
should know,
about
it was just
adding a
there.
bunch of
Yeah.
changes, and we haven't discussed it.
Dave and Jillian Pies, will you have them?
Hello.
Oh, hi, Dave.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having us, Madam Mayor and Council. A lot of the things have already been talked about. With Millward, there, I have the same concerns as far as water runoff. You know about that issue already, Sue. The other thing is, put sidewalks on their side of the road. It stops at our place, all the way down to Scott. Something to consider as well. I like to see turning lanes into that subdivision from both sides.
Dave, you're really breaking up.
Hello?
Okay, there you go. So try again, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, I like to see turning lanes going into that subdivision from both ends. The density of that subdivision is 30-foot lots, like seriously, small. Could probably reduce that by probably 40 units. What else? I think that everything else has been pretty much covered. There's going to be way too much traffic on this road. Again, won't be able to handle that traffic, so it's something you have to consider.
Dave, do you have a phone number you can phone in and speak on your phone? Because you've broken up. Can we send him a phone number? Because I can't hear him.
Yeah, it's 519.
No. We're going to send you a phone number, Dave, to call in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ashley, you're going to email it to him, or what are you going to do?
Yeah, I'm getting that sorted right now.
Thank you. And if we can't get that to happen, then he can submit his comments in writing, because there's no decision tonight.
Okay.
But we'll see if we can get you to phone in first.
Yeah, staff should be reaching out to you right now, so they'll be in touch with you.
Do we want to allow council to speak while we're waiting for Dave to call in? Councillors, who would like to go first, if any? Councillor Osner.
So I've received a lot of correspondence and had a lot of conversations with residents in the area as the developments obviously in my ward. And there seems to be a very strong general opinion of everybody. And I agree with a lot of the comments that are made. I don't know what traffic study has been done and what time of year. Did they do it around, 8, 9 in the morning when the kids are all going to school, and around 3 or 4 in the afternoon when they're all leaving school? Because I've had residents tell me there's cars backed up 10 deep trying to turn onto Scott Street. This is going to make it even worse. So unless they're going to put a 4-way stop or a stoplight there or a roundabout, it's going to be impossible for vehicles to be coming up towards the development on Scott Street, trying to turn left into this development, and cars that are trying to turn right, and they can't turn right because the cars in front of them are turning left and they're blocking traffic. It's going to be crazy. Second of all, I think the density is way too high in the subdivision. And I do not believe that an apartment building is something that's going to be suited in this development. We have to develop it, that's fine, but we're going to do this responsibly. And there's no way that we can jam pack that many people in there. We're going to have way too many problems. Concerns over parking was a big one as well. Let me see, the density in the apartment building, that was a huge one. Walking trails, why there isn't sidewalks on both sides of the street, walking trails, a walking path or a bike path through the development. I mean, was it, Councilor Rowland would probably remember better than I would. Was it 2-3 years ago that we requested this, that we wanted to start connecting this town together and starting to have access for the kids on their bikes so they didn't have to walk, ride on the road, or,
The one trail they did put in was right along the Hall property line.
Yeah, but where's it go though?
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Like the road to nowhere is no good. So, we need to have this done properly. And the other thing I'm sure we can discuss later is about the whole process with public meetings and having the public involved. It's a very contested area. It's not the biggest development in there, but it's in a position and it's in a place that is very unique. And I think that if this is not done properly, it's going to be a mess. And we've had enough messes. We're going to do this. We got to do this right.
Ashley, do we have David yet?
Not at this time. They've been sent the phone number to call in. So we're just waiting to connect with them at this time.
So you'll let me know when they do call.
Yeah, I'll let you know when we have them.
Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Williman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've never said this before, but I'll say it now. I actually agree with Douglas Stewart. I think he made some good points in his presentation. I do agree that we have a berm, which I think we should take advantage of. That should be kept in place. We should put a trail around that berm. It's a fantastic idea. As Councillor Ostner said, we want trails in this community. We've said that for years and years. I remember fighting with Douglas Stewart about it, and he's seen the light. He's come to the dark side now, and he wants to put in trails. That's fantastic. I think that Councillor Ostner mentioned about the traffic. I agree 100%. We should either have a roundabout there or a traffic light there, or maybe a pedestrian island. The region put a pedestrian island at Hilltop and Swan Street. That has less children crossing there than they would be crossing here. So I don't know why we can't have a pedestrian island in that location as well. The whole idea of the parkette serving as a stormwater infiltration pond concerns me, because why don't we get a stormwater management pond with a trail around it and also get a parkette? Why do we have to have these two things combined? I don't think they should be combined. It's a stormwater management pond. That's what it is. That's fine. You have to have that. And then now give us our parkette separately. So there's concerns about that. And also, I think the density that Councillor Oster mentioned, that a lot of the residents mentioned, the 8-story apartment building, no way, I'm not in favor of that. And the density that they keep throwing out, That is not real. Those are not real numbers. We do not have transit in this town, so that is not even an issue. Let's stick with a more realistic number of units, and let's have it so that people can get in and out safely. Children can walk in and out safely. People can cycle through there, and that's what I like to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ossner, go ahead.
One quick point I forgot to mention. When I looked at the drawing of the property, the whole property itself, there's a big part across the back that they're not developing. Is that correct?
Where the slope is, where you can't develop?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
but
you
their
can't develop there,
property
there's a
line-
slope.
But their property line goes beyond that,
Yeah,
right?
part way into the slope, yes.
Yes. So when they count 21.6 hectares, are they talking 21.6 hectares of development, or is the whole property 21.6 hectares?
Shahid and Fahid?
Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Ossner, the entire property is being developed. Along that northern edge, the lots are extremely deep, in part because of the significant change in slope or grade.
So they're developing from property line to property line. There's no green space area because of wetlands or anything.
That's correct. There is no protected area. And they are developing from property line to property line, both in an east-west, north-south orientation.
Okay, thank you.
Councillors, any other councillors' comments? Seeing none, do we have David yet? Dave and Jillian Pies? There's David Pies,
There they are.
perfect timing. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Sue. Thank you, Council. As we were saying this earlier before, there's a lot of things that were covered already. The density of the subdivision, I think, is too dense, and I think the lot sizes are way too small. Water runoff, as you know, we already have a problem with that. As Liz Millward already mentioned that, I'd like to see turning lanes going into the property. As far as sidewalks, well, sidewalks would only come down to the edge of my property because you can't get it past John and Diane's. So you would have to put some sort of crossing down there, or very across from our driveway, I guess. And I just don't think that this road can handle all that traffic. I mean, never mind Jedburgh Dam. There would have to be something done there to control all that, right? So, but other than that, everything else has pretty much been covered.
Thank you, David, and thank you for calling in and being so patient. So I guess that's all our speakers. And again, councillors, any comments? See, Councilor McCreary.
Oh, just one thing I noticed, and other councillors have commented on it too, is this park. I know developers tend to want to reduce the amount that they have to set aside for parkland. I think they have a certain percentage, but it did look to me as if the stormwater management pond had turned into the park. So I guess you get to walk around a pond, and that's the park. Well, the stormwater management ponds all over the place. I don't think they're considered to be part of the parkland that the developer was required to set aside. So I'm concerned about that. Thank you.
Thank you. CEO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, if I could just clarify through to Councillor McCreary, the parkette does represent 5% of the land area of the plan. The proposed stormwater system, or a portion of the stormwater system, is actually infiltration galleries below the surface. So the premise is at the surface, it looks like green grass and it's a parkette. But buried below the frost line, is infiltration galleries where the pipe network from the adjacent road system would be fed. It's similar to what we did in the Gore subdivision on Northumberland Street in a smaller scale. Now, the township engineer in his early review has raised questions about I'll call it the functionality of what we can do on the surface. And if I'm looking at for example, play structures and the footings that we typically need to anchor those play structures. Is there sufficient area before there's a conflict between the surface activities and the infiltration galleries below subsurface? And as Shahid has indicated in the staff report, that's one of the items that remains outstanding and is subject to further review.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Rollman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to follow up on what the CEO said. So in my way of thinking, that is still the same thing. A stormwater management pond or an infiltration gallery, that achieves a requirement they have to deal with stormwater. We have a separate requirement for a park. So you know what? Put your stormwater management pond in wherever you've got to put it, but give us a parkette somewhere separately or adjacent to it so we can have more parkland or have more trails, but don't call a stormwater management system a park. That's disingenuous.
And no more, one more call, no more. And the motion, please. Very good conversation, by the way, councillors and public.
Okay, so it's moved by Councillor Rollman and seconded by Councillor Osner that report PD 13-2020 be received and that all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for further consideration in a future report to council on the disposition of this matter. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. So Clerk, we're finished with the public meetings and now we're going back to committee of the whole. Is that correct? Or we're done committee of the whole as well?
No, so now there's a motion. There's a motion now to adjourn to committee of adjustment.
Committee of adjustment. Thank you very much. Committee of adjustment, please.
Yes.
And
So,
that motion?
So it's moved by Councillor Osner, seconded by Councillor McCreary, that the council meeting be adjourned and be adjourned at 9:10 p.m. To sit as committee of adjustment for the purposes of holding public meetings pursuant to the provisions of the Planning Act. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Okay, so do you want to tell me what page we're on the agendas now?
We do. So in your public meeting script, Mayor Foxton,
Yes.
We're on the last item that is in there.
Which is on page?
It's the second last page.
Page 4? Are we on the, no, that's
We're on
the consent agenda.
page 3.
Okay.
So we're at the motion to approve the committee of adjustment minutes.
All right, so let's do that.
Okay, moved by Councillor Rollman, seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that the committee of adjustment approve the minutes dated June 23rd, 2020. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
And now are we doing the minutes for June 23rd? No,
No,
July 13th?
So if you look at the bottom of page 3 of your public meeting script, we've got the third application, which is for report PD 15-2020 consent application for 2384 Dundas Street.
Okay, thank you. So we're just bringing that motion forward, is that correct?
Yes, so we, just to begin, I'd like to give notice, that notice in accordance with the Planning Act was given. See where we are?
Yeah, pretty sure I know where we are. There we are, yep.
Yeah, got it, okay.
Okay, so, a statement of the Planning Act notice was given. The Secretary Treasurer will record everyone who has commented on this application, attended, and or have registered with the Clerk's Division to attend the meeting this evening. Those individuals will be notified of the decision or the convening of future meetings. And But we've already gone through this. We've already introduced Erica, and she's done her presentation, and we've also had Neil and Audrey O'Meara, CEO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, yes, it's the same property. The public meeting that you convened about an hour and a half ago related to this property had to deal with the zoning bylaw amendment. So you as council heard that application. You're now sitting as the committee of adjustment to deal with the consent application. So there's a lot of interrelationship, but you're sitting as two separate bodies.
Okay, so Erica, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as Andrew mentioned, they're very interrelated and there's a lot of redundancies. So I'm going to move much quicker through this presentation. So if you have any questions at the end, please just let me know. I'm going to share my screen now.
Go ahead, dear.
All right. All right, can everybody see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So this is for consent application for 2384 Dundas Street South, file number B-0120 with the related file number ZC-0220. So same purpose of the statutory public meeting is to provide an overview of the proposal, identify any issues that be addressed by staff, and solicit comments by interested members of the public, government agencies, and stakeholders that can be reflected in a future report to the Committee of Adjustment on the merits of this consent application. So the same property background, 2384 Dundas Street South, and it's located at the intersection of Dundas Street South and Morrison Road. The lot area and lot frontage and depth are shown on this slide. The property location currently has one residential dwelling and one storage building, and also has an existing food drying and processing facilities, which is currently leased by the Ontario Christian Gleaners with access from Morrison Road. So there is the concurrent zoning bylaw amendment application. So that amendment facilitates this severance. That application speaks specifically to the deficient lot area and deficient lot frontage of a Zone 1 property, and also would include an agricultural related use definition to amend the existing site-specific exemption on the property. So these are the proposed total property lot frontages and lot area for the retained lot and the severed lot, which we have discussed earlier as well. The severed lot specifically is deficient in lot frontage with 73.785 meters. And the lot area is also deficient with 1.01 hectares, which is being dealt with through the zoning amendment application. So the public correspondence received was also from Penny Warner. She spoke to both applications in her letter. It's also appended to the report. Same comments for both applications as the zoning amendment and the consent application were received by the Regional Waterloo Planning Department, who expressed no concerns. The Grand River Conservation Authority, who expressed no concerns or objection. Energy Plus, who expressed no concerns or objection and just noted that if the relocation or upgrade is required, it is at the applicant's cost, and all ESA and Energy Plus approved clearances to existing and proposed hydro plant must be met. And if an easement is required, it is a result of the proposal. The applicant will be responsible for all the costs. Hydro One also submitted comments with respect to the consent and zoning amendment application and stated that any future development or redevelopment of the property that establishes the placement of permanent structures, facilities, or landscaping within the transmission corridor is prohibited without prior written approval from Hydro One, but they have no objection in principle. All of the same planning matters are being addressed through both applications. So similar to what we discussed earlier, all comments being received through the consultation process are being reviewed by staff. The effect of the proposed developments on matters of provincial interest are also being reviewed for this consent application. We will also be analyzing whether the consent conforms to the official plan, and if the subject proposal in the opinion of staff is desirable for the property, compatible with adjacent land uses and properties, and maintains the character of the area. So staff recommend to the Committee of Adjustment that all comments and correspondence received through the public meeting process be returned to staff for a future report on the disposition of this matter. So again, this is a very brief summary because we went through the application in detail earlier, but if you have any questions, please let me know and I'd be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. So now the applicant or proponent, would they like to address the issue?
Sorry, I was just on mute there. Madam Mayor, we have the same presentation, which we previously went over earlier in the meeting. And so if it would be helpful to the committee, we could go over the presentation again. I'll leave that in your hands to decide if that would be helpful. If not, I just want to say that we look forward to continue working with staff on this application and addressing any comments that come up through this process. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions should the committee have any.
Members of the committee, do you have any questions? Seeing none, I don't think we need to see the presentation again. Thank you very much. And again, do we have, Penny has already sent her in writing. Neil has already spoken. Would he like to speak again?
Don't believe he's still in the meeting.
Thank you. Any members of the committee like to speak? And seeing none, then I'll have a motion, please.
So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rolleman that the Committee of Adjustment receive PD report number 15-2020 and that all public and agency comments received through the consultation process be returned to staff for further consideration in a future report to the committee on the disposition of this matter. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. So now we are done with the Committee of Adjustment and the motion to adjourn.
Yep, so moved by Councillor Rolleman, seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that pursuant to the Planning Act, the public meeting of the Committee of Adjustment is adjourned at 9:19 p.m. and the council meeting be called back to order. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yeah. Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is carried.
Thank you. So that's Committee of Adjustments done.
And we left off, Madam Mayor, at we're on item 9.
Okay. Thank you. Adoption of the Committee of the Whole resolutions for August 10th.
Yes, that's correct. So that motion is moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor McCreary that council adopt the recommendations as adopted and presented by Committee of the Whole dated August 10th, 2020. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner? Sorry, Councillor Rolleman, I went out of order.
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Are you sure? Yes.
Sorry, Councillor Ossner, I didn't
Yes.
catch. Yes, thank you. Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Perfect. That motion is carried.
Thank you. Next, we have the adoption of the minutes. Motion, please. The June 23rd and July 13th.
Yeah, so moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor McCreary that council approve the following minutes. Public meeting minutes dated June 23rd, 2020, and the council meeting minutes dated July 13th, 2020. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion's carried.
Thank you. When do we get to the Gore property? It says 8.1 on it. Did we already do this?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure. Then we are down to items for discussion, and I believe, is this where the councillor ones come in, Ashley?
Oh, we're at item 12, the communication and correspondence items.
Okay, so items for discussion, we have none down, so that doesn't mean that. Okay.
Yeah, we don't have any items for discussion.
Okay, communications, please, and that's the motion for. Anybody wish to pull any correspondence? Seeing none, can I have the motion, please?
Sure. So moved by Councillor Rolleman, seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that council receive for the purpose of information the following items. With the chair's permission, it's as presented in the agenda. It's item 12.1.1 through to 12.1.8. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolleman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion's carried.
Thank you. So now we are down to report from Councillor Gillespie regarding Clyde Road.
Oh, sorry, Mayor Foxton, we just missed the Waterloo item 12.3.
Oh, I apologize.
Region of Waterloo minutes.
Please.
Yeah, moved by Councillor Rowland, seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that council receive for the purposes of information the following items: the Region of Waterloo minutes dated June 16th, 2020. And Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that's carried.
Thank you. Now we're on the report from Councillor Gillespie regarding Clyde Road. And this is the email you received from Bill Henderson, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You know, reading this, he talks about radar speed sign, but this isn't radar. We're not doing like a photo radar.
Well, I've asked why they can't do photo radar, but that doesn't seem to be in the cards either. But right now, I'd just like to get the flashing speed signs.
CEO McNeely. You're on mute.
Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Gillespie, perhaps I could provide a little bit of context about the photo radar. So the provincial government about a year ago amended the Highway Traffic Act and the associated regulation allowing for photo radar. However, it cannot be applied universally across a street network. It only applies within community safety zones. So a portion of a road network has to be designated and under the Highway Traffic Act by the appropriate road authority as a community safety zone. And to do that, certain criteria have to be met. And then within a community safety zone, you can set up, or the road authority can set up photo radar. So as it relates to the signage related to traffics, the traffic sign that would show if you're speeding or not, the region does not support the installation of permanent signs that measure or read the speed of oncoming traffic and highlight or bring that speed to the attention of the motorist. So if you travel into Oxford County, you will see that quite extensively at some of their settlement areas. But the region of Waterloo does not allow that to be installed within their right-of-way. They will allow the temporary mobile signs, for a week or two, to be installed within their right-of-ways, but they will not allow anything on a permanent basis.
Go ahead, Councillor Gillespie.
I just really can't understand that. Are they back in the early century, or what is the problem here? If you drive into Cambridge, on Cambridge streets, in town, they just have those little flashing signs now. Like, why? I just really can't understand why we cannot get those put up.
They're two different things, I believe. One is the flashing speed signs and one is photo radar, which are two different things.
It's just the flashing speed signs I want to start off with. They could make tons of money putting photo radar on Clyde Road, let's face it. But yeah.
Councillor Osner.
Just a quick question, CAO McNeely. You say the region doesn't support it, but does that mean the region will denounce it if we do it?
Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Osner, the portion of Clyde Road that Councillor Gillespie is speaking to is within the region's jurisdiction. It is the regional portion of Clyde Road. So yes, the region would have to agree to its installation.
Okay, so just to add to my question, if the region doesn't encourage it or discourages it, is that saying the region will say no if we say we want to put it up?
In the email chain that they provided to Councillor Gillespie, they basically said, no, they will not. It's inconsistent with their standards or practices.
So would it be poking the bear if we did it anyway?
And didn't tell them?
Yeah.
I believe it would be removed if we were to do it without their permission.
But you said permanent, but if we put it up for a week and then took it down, and then put it up for another week and then took it down.
So, Madam Mayor, if
waiting a
I
week in
may,
between.
Please.
right now, we have our small portable sign, and we have asked the region for permission to place it in a couple of locations on regional roads, one of them being Roseville Road in proximity to the settlement area. And I just got permission to put it up, and they've given me the defined window of time in which it's allowed to be installed. So they're very prescriptive on those temporary signs, speed signs.
Okay.
I will address it at regional council. Councilor Gillespie.
That's what I was just going to ask, if you would speak to that at regional council, because this is just kind of ridiculous, I think.
I will.
Yeah.
All
Like I'd
those
like one
gypsy
on
moths.
Branston Road too.
It may be exactly what they say, like the stop signs. Stop signs cause rear end collisions, and that's why we can't have them in Roseville, because they cause rear end collisions. But what I responded is, then why do you have them anywhere else? But anyways. So anything else, Councilor Gillespie?
No, it's just pretty
Okay.
frustrating, and like they really didn't. I was asking about someone that's just inside the township wants the speed limit dropped there, which I don't really agree with that. But that part didn't even get answered in my email. So, yeah.
Okay, and you have another one regarding the gypsy moths.
Yes.
Moths. So would you like to, so we'll bring that resolution forward, or would you like to speak on it for a minute?
Well, I agree with the resolution as it has stated, and I think it's very important to have a resolution that everyone can agree on, like the surrounding communities, because if we do something and Brant County, for instance, doesn't, then it just negates our project at all.
Very
I
good
was
point.
up in Woolwich yesterday. They've got problems up in Woolwich with it too. So it's all Ontario wide, I believe, because I heard down Kingston area, they've had a huge problem with it down there as well. So I think the MNR really needs to look after it, and it's a provincial problem.
Thank you. Clerk, if you could read the motion starting at now therefore.
Sure, yes. So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rollman. Now therefore, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of North Dumfries resolves that the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry be requested to undertake a robust surveillance program in the fall of 2020 to identify the hotspots and to measure the density of the gypsy moth population within southwestern Ontario, and that the ministry advise affected municipalities of the results rising from the surveillance program, and to recommend a framework for a coordinated approach to curb the gypsy moth population to be delivered in 2021, and that the ministry embark upon a treatment program partnership with willing municipalities as part of a broader strategy to deal with the gypsy moth infestation, and that this resolution be forwarded to the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry, Mike Harris Jr., Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry, and to Cambridge MPP Belinda Cariosis. Sorry, I can't.
Carihalios.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that this resolution be forwarded to the region of Waterloo, the area municipalities within Waterloo region, the county of Brant, and the city of Brantford. So Mayor Foxton, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ostner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that motion's carried.
Thank you. Next up is Councillor Ostner. You have the parking at Jetberg Dam, Northumberland Street paving, and in-person council meetings.
Okay, I'm going to go in reverse order because I mean, in-person council meetings now is a moot point because we've dealt with that earlier.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with the Northumberland Street paving. If you look at where the on Northumberland where the apartment buildings are, and they patchworked it along there. It's absolutely ridiculous. It used to be a nice, flat, normal paved street, and you're going down like this, and it's like a little bit of a roller coaster. So can we contact the owners of the development that whenever they're done digging up our streets and making a mess of the place, that we want that skimmed and paved perfectly?
CEO McNeely.
So Madam Mayor, the region's accepted the standard that you have there because in 2021, the region's actually going to dig up that portion of Northumberland Street through to and just to the north of Broome Street. So when the traffic report was done a few years ago for the redevelopment of the old Schneider property, the traffic report recommended a left turn lane. The region's got a practice where they won't allow the development community to put in turning lanes or right turn tapers. It has to be part of a regional road project. So they collected money from the developer. The region's designed the new widening of Northumberland Street, which includes a left turn lane. Built into that, they are proposing as part of that project, a left turn lane to go into Broome Street, as well as if you go just to the north of the intersection, there's two dips in front of the Air Curling Club. Well, they did some geotechnical work, and I guess there's some organics underneath the road, and the road is sinking in two locations. So they're going to be spending about $425,000 next year to rebuild Northumberland Street with a slight widening to accommodate a dedicated left turn into the development, as well as onto Broome Street itself. And so that area will be dug up.
Okay, so that's fair enough. I mean, whatever, that's fine. So I've noticed several times, I passed by going to work and coming home past the stop signs at Jedburgh Dam. Numerous occasions I've come home and there'll be cars parked along just past the bridge on the side of the street. And some of the cars will park on the other side where the Campbell Trail begins. And it is a logjam of traffic and people trying to joust so that the one lane can get through. So what I'd like to see is X amount of feet on both sides of the street from the Jedburgh Dam. There's no parking, so they can't obstruct the travel of traffic, because it's ridiculous. And since then, I've had about 4 people say, yeah, you know what, I was down there and it was crazy. There was a FedEx driver sitting there, or there was a lady parked off to the side, or there was a guy with his truck and it was half on and half off. Like, I don't understand why they need to stop there to sit at the benches. I understand it's beautiful to look at the ducks and the water and all that, but you can't just park your car there and block traffic because you want to look at the ducks.
And Councillor Osner, if I may, there is parking space down further. They don't need to be near the stop sign, and that's exactly what's happening. They're 1 car length from the stop sign. And yesterday I couldn't get around, and it was so. CEO McNeely, it's your turn.
So for the purposes of clarification, council would actually need to amend the township's traffic and parking bylaw to designate the no parking area. So I guess for my clarification, are you looking at both sides of the road? And are we extending from effectively the Jedburgh Dam all the way up to Hall Street? Or are you only looking at a portion of that section?
No, portion of the section. But my question to you first of all would be, what is the standard traffic law of parking a car? How far do you have to park from a stop sign?
So my memory, Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Ostner, under the Highway Traffic Act, you're not allowed to park within 9 meters of an intersection or a controlled intersection. So a stop sign, a traffic light, a crosswalk. So by rights, it's 9 meters offset.
About 30 feet.
About 30 feet.
So I would extend that to maybe 50 feet or,
Derek, 30 feet would probably be 3 car lengths. I think that would be plenty.
yeah.
I think 30
Well,
feet.
yeah, well then, okay, then that begs to ask the next question is, why isn't this being enforced?
Well,
Because there's people parking there all day, every single time I go by there, there's somebody parked there, every single time.
So there's 2 things. It's not a very well laid out area in terms of defining where the road is versus the boulevard. So people I've seen parked on the boulevard and not on the road. I mean, it's all over. So you're probably better to sign it right from the stop sign. And if council's looking at 45 meters or 40 meters, which is from the actual bridge to the, I guess it'd be to the north on both sides of the road, then when those signs are in and that bylaw is adopted, then it can be enforced. But right
Yeah, but
now,
I don't think we want 40 meters because that would take us almost to Hall Street.
No,
I
we don't.
want cars to stop there.
We just need to get them away from essentially there's 2 benches. There's one close to the bridge and there's one a little further up. The one close to the bridge and across the street, that's where we need to stop it. So
that's exactly right.
If 9 meters works, if the guys can go out there and measure 9 meters, if it can get us past that, then we're in good shape, but we need signage up there. No,
I'll remeasure it. I measured it today, but I'll remeasure it. You'd be surprised at how far north that second bench is. Offset from the bridge.
Well, how far is the first bench?
Oh, the first bench is probably within 8 to 9 meters of the stop sign itself. But the second
I think Derek was referring to the
second
first
bench
bench.
isn't an issue, Andrew. It's the first bench closest to the bridge.
All right.
Right across the street.
Councilor Rollerman.
Isn't the real problem that people want to stop there and look at the ducks and there's nowhere to park? So if we're going to start enforcing no parking, then we need to provide some parking area. So what's the proposal? If we're going to say you can't park on the Jedburgh Dam side of the street, on the east side of the street,
they could
then where are
park
people
on
going to
the
park? I don't want this to turn into an enforcement issue. We need to have a designated parking spot then for people.
Well, we're not saying, see, usually they don't park this close up to the stop sign, but they have been lately. Usually they park by that first bench and further back because there's ample space to park there. But lately they've been crowding up towards the bridge. CEO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, if it'll assist council, we'll bring something to our next report we'll bring a report to the next meeting of council and we can map out, the area that we're discussing and to Councillor Rollerman's concern where then parking could be placed in proximity to Jedburgh Dam.
Go ahead, Councillor Osner.
Sorry, in the meantime, can we get signs up there, no parking 9 meters from Jedburgh Dam out? Because I mean, it's the issue of traffic, not just, looking at the cute ducks. It's an issue of traffic. It's obstructing traffic and people are angry.
So normally we don't put a sign at an intersection because, well, think of the number of intersections you have across your municipality. Everyone's supposed to know that when they got their license. But we can put up a sign temporarily, but I would hate to repeat that at every single intersection in this municipality. Costs $175 a sign, and it's intimidating to see the number of signs we had removed by members of the community over this past weekend, causing potential traffic safety issues.
Well, then I'm going to suggest you take the stop signs away from Jedburgh Dam and let the traffic flow and let them do what they used to do before the stop signs are there, because it's ridiculous with people parked on each side. We're going to have people scratching each other's vehicles, and I've already seen people yelling and honking at each other because they park halfway onto the dirt and halfway on the road. You can't get by.
Can I suggest, CEO McNeely, that you go with your original plan and bring something to the next council meeting that we can look at and see if there can be a way to improve this? and we'll discuss it further then. Is that fair, Councillor Osner?
That's fair. I'd still like to see at least one sign go up there, no parking 9 meters from the Jedburgh Dam, from the stop sign. Because it really is, like, you just go down there and watch when the traffic is
You know, it
busy.
doesn't even make
And you
sense
get
to
the
me.
trucks, and you get the dump trucks going through there, and you get the bigger vehicles and the FedEx trucks just stop wherever they want.
Tell me about it.
They do.
But
They just, like, he just literally stopped there and just sat there, and nobody knew what was happening.
And I don't understand the east side at all, because there's between the east side, between the bridge and that first bench, it's all brushed. There's nowhere to even pull over, and they park there. Councillor Rowland.
Maybe FedEx was delivering some food for the ducks.
They could have been.
Okay, this is going a little quackers here. So CO McNeely, I hope you'll bring that report back to council.
So Ashley's, as noted in the minutes, as an action item for us to do for the next meeting in September.
I also would like to get council's approval to go to the region to ask for a no parking sign on the bend between Main and Stanley by the first 2 homes coming, because you come around that bend, and if anybody is parked in front of the big house there on the right, then I have had school bus drivers calling me saying they almost hit these cars because they don't see them coming around the bend. So
Can you
just one no parking sign there.
Can you wait till the construction's done at Kirkwood, though?
You know what? If they're parked there on that side as well as the other side,
They're parked.
you're
all
asking for an
down.
accident.
They're parked all down there every day, every morning.
I can wait. Well, probably if I complain to the region now, it'll take a year to have effect. I can wait.
Yeah,
Wait.
I mean, I have no problem with it. I'm just saying that's going to be another thorn in the side of the development at Kirkwood.
True, I will wait.
They'd have enough headaches already.
I will wait. Okay, so we're now on first and second reading of the bylaws. If there's no other comments, we're good? Okay.
Okay,
What
so
do-
moved by
What do
Council.
ducks eat, Rudd?
Hmm?
What do ducks like? I'll have Pure later drop something.
Go ahead, Ashley. Try and get this back to control.
Okay. So moved by Councillor Gillespie, seconded by Councillor Roman, that the following bylaws be taken as read a first and second time. Bylaw number 3176-20 being a bylaw to amend the retention bylaw. Bylaw number 3177-20 being a bylaw to amend the procedural bylaw. Bylaw number 3178-20 being a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw. Bylaw 3179-20 being a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Oster,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that is carried.
One moment, Ashley, on the bylaw, you start off bylaw number 3178-20 being a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw number. Did you read number 3118-19? So it was a replacement.
Sorry, yeah, we're amending. That's the bylaw we're amending. Sorry.
Perfect, thank you. And next we have third reading of the bylaws.
So moved by Councillor Rowland, seconded by Councillor McCreary, that the following bylaws be taken as read a third time and finally passed. Bylaw number 3176-20 being a bylaw to amend the retention bylaw. Bylaw number 3177-20 being a bylaw to amend the procedural bylaw. Bylaw number 3178-20 being a bylaw to amend the fees and charges bylaw. And bylaw 3179-20 being a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw. Mayor Foxton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that is carried.
Thank you. And I believe we have the procedural bylaw next, please.
Oh, the confirming
Confirm
bylaw?
the proceedings of council.
Yeah. So moved by Councillor Rowland, seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that bylaw 3180-20 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on August 10th, 2020, be read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed, signed, and sealed by the mayor and clerk. Mayor Foxton, your vote on that? Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
and Councillor Gillespie?